All right, Locker Room Philosophers fans, we are here with Mike Edwards, a.k.a. Mike the Cop. Mike, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for coming to my house to record the podcast.
Yeah, we are missing Mike D today, but at least it'll be simpler with just having one Mike here. So, Mike, where did you grow up and what did you do for fun before you were Mike the Cop?
I guess I could say I grew up downriver. I mean, I moved to Michigan when I was 5.
Okay.
But I moved to Taylor, so Taylor, Tucky.
Old Taylor, Tucky.
That's where my family hails from, and they also do come from Kentucky prior to that. So it's like I'm truly a Taylor Tuckian by DNA. So yeah, I grew up downriver, and we moved all over the place. Monroe County. I was in Mabee for a while. Carlton. My grandma got sick when I was early elementary school, so my parents wanted to be closer to her while she was doing her cancer treatments and stuff like that. So then we were in Monroe County, and then I think we moved back downriver 7th grade ish. So like there was a period, pretty much 2nd grade to late elementary to 7th grade, I was in Monroe County, but then I was back downriver for the rest of my life, pretty much.
All right, and what did you do for fun? Were you a martial artist like you are now, or did you play sports, or what did you do?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I played Little League baseball, like pretty much everybody. That was that and soccer. I did those sports, and then my dad did make me do Korean karate martial arts, so like Tang Sudo, Taekwondo. So I did all that. You
got your black belt in like a year?
Yeah, not quite a year. I think I started training like seriously in Taekwondo like probably my freshman year, and I think I got my black belt like my senior year.
So they had you on the long track.
Like 4 years, yeah. You got to keep paying those dues, you know. And then I went to University of Detroit Mercy for college. I lived on campus or in houses off campus or whatever in the city. But I started a Taekwondo club there.
Yeah, you did.
And taught Taekwondo. And then I got introduced to a bunch of other like arts there because there was like different clubs on campus. There's like, Japanese jiu-jitsu and other stuff like that. So like these other dudes would random like cross train or whatever. And some of it was like total bullshito, like the Aikido crap and stuff like that. But
just grabbing the wrist and making the person tap out.
I was always into martial arts. Like I think that was like my main interest. I like other sports, but
why do you think that interested you?
I don't know. I think it was because like there was always sort of like this, I don't want to say mystical facet to it. I was just always fascinated by like Bruce Lee movies or
Steven Seagal.
Yeah, Steven Seagal. I did watch all the Steven Seagal movies for sure. Above the Law was like, dude, I remember having that VHS. Do you know that movie?
No. I'm much too young.
What? Come on. All right. So like if you watch Above the Law, there's like this whole opening sequence. And this is kind of like partly a true story with Steven Seagal, where he actually owned or ran. And there's some like discrepancy about him being the owner as opposed to like his wife's family or something like that. But
so you studied the history of Steven Seagal?
Mildly. He's a fascinating dude. Dude's a complete slob. But I was like fascinated by him as a kid. Like this whole concept of like being able to like dominate another human being. Just, I don't know. It's like fascinating.
How many times have you watched Roadhouse before we get back into old Steven?
Roadhouse, I probably watched that movie like 3 times. Like when it was popular. We just watched it. I want to say like 4 or 5 months ago. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is just basically a softcore porn with some fighting. Like that's what this movie is. Like the fighting is actually not very central. It's the softcore sex scenes that is like everything about Roadhouse. We're like, how did we watch? Like, what were our parents doing letting us watch this, you know?
The copious amounts of baby oil.
Oh,
on
my
him.
gosh. But yeah, I remember rewatching the opening to Above the Law because it's like all Aikido. And I didn't know that ultimately that would be relatively useless to anyone's life. You know, maybe there's some kind of like mental benefit or something. I don't know. But I would rewind it and watch that. So like I would literally go rent the tape, you know, at Blockbuster or whatever. Or we would record onto VHS, like if it was on cable, you know.
Yeah,
something like
I remember that.
and rewatch it. But yeah, I don't know. I think other than just the fact that like probably Karate Kid, when that movie came out, I mean, everybody was like, probably skyrocketed karate dojo memberships everywhere, you know, that kind of thing.
100%.
So just an impressionable thing. I was more interested when I got exposed to that than, you know, sports stars or whatever else, you know. Like
Did you test your skills on the mean downriver streets?
Yeah, I did. I got in a lot of fights in like late elementary, junior high, even in high school. I got into a few fights.
This was a precursor to the Facebook fights you keep getting into.
Yeah, now I'm very much a
keyboard warrior,
a mental warrior, verbal warrior.
But so talk to us. Let's hear a highlight of the downriver fights. Mike Edwards, circa 6th grade.
I think the early one, I remember I had this paper route, and so me and my brother had this split up the neighborhood. Actually, like looking back on it, was like it was a big route. Like we made our own money. Like we didn't get allowance, so if we wanted to spend money on anything, we had to make it. So I would mow lawns, and we had this paper route, and these guys were like always like making fun of me for having this paper route. I was like a freshman in high school or whatever, and so I had like a 10-speed bike with like the little
streamers,
the canvas, yeah, that too, basket. And I had like this canvas bag for the Detroit News or whatever, and I had the papers on the side, and they were always making fun of me. And I just remember one day, like I just had enough of it, and I was like, "Hey!" And I just like put the kickstand down. I didn't even like do the shoving mash or anything. I just straight up walked up to this kid, and I like roundhouse kicked him in the side of the face, and he just like dropped like a sack of potatoes. And the other two guys were standing there like his buddies, and they just like looked at each other. They didn't like run away or anything, but they were just like stunned. And I just got back up on my 10 speed and like kept delivering my papers. And I'm like, you shut your mouths now. Like don't like. There's more where that came from, you know. Like I'm just sick of this. So that was one fight.
That's a good fight right there. So you're undefeated in the streets.
No, I don't know if I'm undefeated. I'm trying to think. Like I got in a pretty good scrap like late high school. Like literally, I got in a couple scraps. There was one in like somebody's backyard, but it was planned. It was like we're fighting at this bus stop behind this house at this time, you know. And that one I think that got broke up. But it was like, it was scrappy. Yeah. It was like, I took some blows, he took some blows, you know, like, gosh, I wish I would have known jiu-jitsu back then. But yeah, there was that. And then I had one kid jump me at a bus stop. And it was like a sneak attack. Like, jumped up from behind me and like wraps me in this headlock, knocks me down, socks me in the head a couple times, and then like bolts. And I remember I got in a fight with my dad when I got home, because I came home and I was like all disheveled, you know. And he's like, "What happened to you?" I'm like, "I got in a fight." He's like, "What'd you get in a fight for?" And I said, like, "This kid put me in a fucking headlock." And I was like, swearing in my house was like a no-go. And my dad like straight up cold cocked me. He was like, "Pow!" He just knocked me down. I'm like, what is going on? What is wrong with this day? Like, I've been in 2 fights since I got off the bus. One of them, it's my dad. Like, what is going on? And then I got suspended because the next day I hid in somebody's car. I had a buddy. I stole my dad's. He had this pair of glass nunchucks with steel ends, and I stole them out of his dresser. And I hid in this guy's car, and I waited for this kid to get off the bus, and then
You
hopped
hid in
out.
the guy's car or in some random person's car?
No, a guy in school. Like,
but not the
he had a
not the
car. I rode
victim's
the
car.
bus, right? No, not
I'm
the victim's
I'm
car.
imagining he gets into his
didn't
car and you're
escalate
in the back seat.
that would have been a smarter move, but no, he didn't have a car, and so like I hopped out, and I never got him. He ran too fast, like I couldn't catch him. Like, but I was running down our neighborhood, like was swinging these nunchucks, and yeah,
That's
and
amazing.
I actually ended up I don't know how, that guy's brother ended up being one of my first jiu-jitsu instructors.
It's crazy how
And
that
I was
works.
like, that guy looks really familiar. And he was in there like doing strength training, and I was like, oh, that's Nunchuck Kid. Yeah. And that was pretty much the end of my fighting. I got in a couple little intimidating things like in my college time, but I think I learned to like carry myself a little bit.
Yeah.
More self-control after that.
So it sounds like your dad was an interesting character, though. Talk to me about the whole being raised by a guy who's going to punch you in the face for saying cussing.
He just didn't take no crap, man. Like, he's way chill now. Like comparatively, he's like, yeah, he's just a typical old man that just came back from Florida, or whatever. Like he's laid back now. Like my kids, I don't think my kids really ever got to see that side of him. But my dad was busy, always worked 2 jobs, didn't have time for nonsense.
What did he do?
He pastored a church, and he worked at Prudential doing insurance. So he was either floating between sometimes doing sales, and then like he was like given his own branch. So he was like a branch manager for a while. And then he would always pick up like extra things to try to do to make money. So
Okay. And then what did your mom do?
nothing.
Okay.
Other than she did compete in the Paralympics. Actually, so me, her, and my brother were in a car accident. I think I must have been 6. I think, and it was like I can't remember what time of the day it was. It was in the afternoon, and a drunk driver like was coming like head on a backcountry road, and then so my mom, to avoid it, ended up going in a ditch, and we rolled the car. So me and my brother were like totally fine. We were like in our seatbelts hanging upside down, like what just happened? But my mom like broke certain vertebrae like in the neck or whatever. It caused like partial paralysis.
Okay.
So then she had like health complications from there on out. So like early on, once she had like her initial recovery, she kind of like went back to semi-normal functioning. Like she had a vehicle like that got adapted, a van that she could drive, that kind of stuff. But she just like progressively got worse. But when she was like not horrible, but still disabled, yeah, she competed in the Paralympics. So I got to go to Seoul, Korea in '88 and Barcelona in '92.
What events did she do?
Swimming. And then she did shot put and discus in the field event, and they had something called a club throw. They don't have that in the regular Olympics, but it's like these just heavy clubs.
Okay.
It would be kind of like discus, except it's a club.
Okay. Interesting. Never heard of
Javelin
that.
too, I think, at different times. So different sports, different times.
Okay. Interesting. And then how many siblings did you have?
1.
Okay. And so you went to college. What did you study in college?
Ultimately, philosophy.
Okay.
Ultimately, I started out pre-med, and then
That's quite the change.
Well, yeah, I got like a C- in my first biology or genetics class, and I was like, I'm too stupid for this. I'm like, I can't do 4 years of this and whatever else. And it was more like I had been interested, like I was exposed to a lot of the medical field because of, this was like around doctors all the time. Because like I said, early elementary school, I went to like all my grandmother's appointments, like for her cancer treatment. So like I was always at doctor's offices. And then my mom is in this car accident. I'm always at doctor's offices, doctor's appointments. And there was a lot of attempts at like some more holistic approaches, like chiropractors, osteopaths, other things like that. So I was just exposed to that for a long time, and like my first real job was with a chiropractor, like not in the office. I landscaped. Like he hired me at like age 12 to like just do stuff.
Okay.
You know, like, or no, that would have been 15. So he just hired me. Like he taught me a lot. Like I reupholstered furniture at the chiropractor's office. I did stuff, and eventually, like I worked inside the office and did some administrative stuff, and so I was always just like interested in that, like in that field, and I knew like whether I wanted to go into like, even if I didn't want to be a medical doctor, I still had to go through the basic college stuff. So I was like, I think I declared my major as biology or something like that. And then a year, like by the second semester, I was like, this stuff doesn't interest me whatsoever. Like, I'm not going to keep doing this. And I was like, well, what do I like to do? I love to read. I love to argue. I love to think. And I like to write. So, philosophy.
Yeah, there you go.
So there I was, getting kicked out of classes at Jesuit University.
And what was so you leave high school and were you pushed heavily to go to college? Was it one of those things where they're like, you got to go to school so you can make some money, or what was the situation like?
No, I mean, I think loosely I did want to go into a professional field. Like if you would have asked me when I was a senior, what do you want to do with your life? I would have said, go into the medical, like I would have thought this is what I want. Like I want to do something to go into the medical field on some level of that. Like, and I look back and think, man, I actually think I could have been happy doing like maybe like a physical therapist or a chiropractor or something like that. Like I think I could have found a lot of satisfaction in that world, but we couldn't afford to send me to college. So my parents were really big on, you have to like study, get good grades. You got to kill the ACT, try to get a scholarship. And so my senior year was like misery at home. Like they were making me take practice tests for the ACTs and SATs. And I applied to every single scholarship under the sun. And then that's where I got a full ride to U of D. They had this scholarship, I don't know if they still have it or not, called Insignis. So it was like a mix of academic and like personal. Okay. So like you had to meet the academic requirements, but then you had to go through a series of like oral board interviews, writing a paper, all this stuff. And then like they picked 10 people.
Okay.
So I got to go to.
You didn't argue too much with the interview board?
No, I guess not.
All right, so you switch your major to philosophy, and what was your plan with that?
I had no idea, man. I legitimately had no idea. I was just like, well, this is free. I'm working. And so like
you were working as a landscaper?
I was still working at the chiropractor's office at that time. Like I had started doing like a variety of tasks. I had gone to like a massage therapy school. So I was doing like, I would apply like ice packs and heat therapy and set up the rooms for the doctor. Like, I did like pre-exams, like when new patients would come in, I would like do the new patient interview, set all that stuff up. So I was doing that. And then, that was my life. And then going to school, like, well, this is free. I'm not going to not get the education. I don't have to pay for it. So yeah, that was like the approach for a while.
All right. And what did you end up doing after high school? Well, actually, let me back up. It sounds like you were kind of into entrepreneurship from the jump. Like you were doing the paper route, and then I think you said like something like lawn mowing or shoveling or whatever. What was the inspiration there? And then was that still on your mind when you were doing your philosophy degree? Like maybe I'll just do my own thing after I graduate, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was there. But I only see that in hindsight. Like I can look back on myself thinking about side hustles or kind of like how to make money in efficient time versus like wasting a time getting paid by the hour to do something. So I think like my brain didn't know like what that was. But I learned that stuff from my dad, like, because even like him for like, so Sundays as a pastor was like his busy day, right? And then, but he got up to help me and my brother. Like he woke up at like 4:30 in the morning on a Sunday to help us like stuff our ads in the papers, and like drove us to go drop off our papers, because that all had to be done like by 6:37 in the morning. You know, like we had to be done so that we can go on with the day. So it was like I wouldn't have been thinking at the time, but I was learning like, hey, if you put your, you know, work into this, it's like, oh, I was able to take that and then go buy something that I wanted, you know, from my hard work. So I think that entrepreneurship was like there in the process. But in college, I met a couple of cops that were campus cops, and so a girl that I was interested at the time, I think these cops were also interested in her. Now looking back, like why were they hanging around so often at the same place I was with the same girl? And but they're actually, you know, they're cool guys, and I asked them a lot of questions about that.
Were they U of D campus cops or like DPD?
Well, the answer is yes, because sort of. So they're on the campus. Their commission is Detroit, though. Just kind of like Wayne State, where they're like their own department, but they're sworn in by Detroit.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
Yeah. So yeah, like that's how Midtown actually got turned around. Was Wayne State being allowed to police? Like they police way more than just the campus.
Oh, okay.
They took advantage of that, like to just clean it up, and that was like the beginning. But yeah, but they're, you know, a funny story. I got pulled over on campus one time by a campus cop, and like I just thought they were rent-a-cops, you know, like whatever. And so I blew through a stop sign on campus, and I get pulled over, and I'm like, what is this guy doing? Okay. And then I like open my door, get out of my car. He's like, get back in your car. I'm like, calm down, dude. He's like, he's got his hand. I'm like, this guy's got a gun. I'm like, all right, calm down, man. Like, I'm good. And he
You didn't try to philosophize him.
And that's when I learned, like, oh, okay, so you guys are like cops. And
because tickets make cops.
It's funny. But yeah, I got exposed to law enforcement then. And I had my dad was a dispatcher for a fire department in Illinois. My uncle was a auxiliary dude down here back when like they could actually, like, they rode with like regular officers, not like completely separate, kind of like it is more common now. But yeah, so I had that interest, and I was like, man, I could really see myself doing that. And then I ended up getting a job in, I think like 96 at Meyer doing loss prevention. So then I started meeting a lot of cops in the course of doing that job. So then I was like, boy, I think I could really see myself doing that. Then one of my partners that I was catching shoplifters with went to the police academy at Schoolcraft, got hired by Pittsfield, and I was like, and he was loving it. And then his brother worked at Southgate. I met him, and I was like, man, I was always like jealous. And I got into fights with some shoplifters in the heyday, which was I always freaking lived for. I loved it.
Before everybody had a cell phone.
I was always so jealous when they ran that it was like these guys got to show up with like lights and sirens and go like get these guys. Like I hated them getting away. So I was like, I want that job. I want to catch these turds, you know. Like, so I was like always thinking, man, that would be really cool to do. But I also like my wife. I mean, we'd known each other since we were freshmen in high school, but we started dating and got married in started dating in 94, got married in 95.
The year I was born.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had my first kid in July of 97. So, like, all in that time, I'm having these interests, but I'm also, like, starting a family.
Yeah.
And I'm, like, finishing school. And it was just, I never even made any attempts at, I think I took the old Malazzi test, like the old school test way back in the day, but I never did anything with it. Like it was just never felt like the right time. People weren't hiring at the time. It was just it was meant to be later.
So what'd you end up doing?
I ended up taking a job teaching at a private school, based on like my degree, and then I started doing some youth ministry work, and ultimately got an opportunity 2000 and 2001 to go out of the country with a friend of ours that started a school in Costa Rica, a private school there. And so his son was going to be back in the States for a year, and they didn't want to lose the lease that they had on the house that they had in Costa Rica. So he was visiting. It was like, man, you should just go down there. You're already teaching up here. Just do it down there for while I'm gone. I get to keep my house. You can take my job down there while I'm gone at the school while I'm up here for the year. And we're like, let's do it. You know, I had 2 kids at the time, and we went to Costa Rica. Had a 3rd kid there.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I should have stayed. And then
What were you teaching? Philosophy or just like English?
No, I taught junior high English and U.S. history. So they had like a dual diploma program. Salvation Army is down there, like has a heavy presence in the capital, Costa Rica, and Procter and Gamble has their like international headquarters is there.
Okay.
So like tons of U.S. citizens have their kids there. Well, they could send them to get this private education and still get a U.S. diploma, like a valid diploma.
Okay.
So I taught U.S. history and English, some stuff here and there. And then, I did a variety of odd jobs there. And then we came back to the States. And then I went back to work at Meyer in loss prevention. And
how was that job? Because I have dealt with a wide variety of talent levels in the loss prevention world.
Yeah. I mean, I think they changed so many things. Like I only know Meyer, but being a cop and being at Walmart all the time and stuff like that. So like I kind of have watched that evolution of that stuff unfolding too. But like for my part, honestly, I had like several of the guys that I worked with all became cops. So I
believe that for sure.
I think like now, like you maybe wouldn't see that as much because they took the teeth away from the job. So like the kinds of guys that would want that job before, like in the late 90s, wouldn't want it now.
Yeah, I mean, they don't do anything at all.
Don't do anything.
Yeah.
So why would I want that job? Like there's literally no action to be had. So like why would I do it? So so it's a good experience for me. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I mean, I'm glad that I didn't like do it forever, but yeah, I mean, it was a good like stepping stone, and it made me familiar with a lot of local cops and stuff like that. So I mean, it was good for me.
What was the decision-making process for getting into law enforcement, and what did your wife think about it?
So I ended up starting a window washing business. So I came back from Costa Rica, go back to Meyer, just I knew that wasn't going to be a long-term solution. Then I tried a gig at a bank. I started it as a float teller and then got a position in, of all things, the mortgage department as a processor. But it was more like data entry, not like what you would think of as a normal mortgage processor now, but hated it. And on lunch break one day, I got a magazine that had like an ad in it, like your own window washing business. And it was like this thing about this guy was making $100,000 a year or whatever doing windows. And I was like, huh. So I found on the early internet a course for like $50, and it's actually really good. it was like everything you need, start to finish, what equipment that you need, where to buy it, how to price jobs. And I replaced my income in 2 weeks on Saturdays. Like I was off Saturdays. So I like went out and I just like would go into a 7-Eleven or a Subway or wherever and be like, hey, here's my quote for what I would do. And sometimes they would pay me like on the spot to like clean the windows. And I just like, all right, I'm going to do this every 2 weeks. And I set it all up. I just followed this course. And then I was set. I was like, I replaced my income in 2 weeks. I was like, this is nice. This is cool. And then I ended up like buying some lady's residential business who was getting out of the business. And so then I had like 200 residential clients that I could work. It wasn't a guarantee that they would keep using me, but I grew that. And so that was a whole skill of learning to like manage a business and all that stuff.
How did you like that? Because I know a guy that I grew up with that worked for some window washing company, and he like fell off a ladder and really injured himself. Like he was out of work for like a year plus.
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. I try to be in a good rhythm of like one residential job in the morning and one in the afternoon. I did my commercial stuff like Saturdays. And so I made my own schedule and I just put my headphones in, man. I listened to podcasts and music or whatever, do my job, get paid. I was like, it was awesome. Like I really enjoyed doing it, but I also really still had a pull toward doing things involving like, I think, ministry, mentorship in that world. And so I was like volunteering at a church, and that continued for a while. And then when the crash like started to happen, it's actually started hitting like me like 2007-ish. And I had one employee, and I ended up like selling. We lost like a huge commercial contract, and was starting to like see a big dip in the residential thing because of people foreclosing on their homes. Like things were starting to kind of like go south. And I was like,
People's priorities weren't on clean windows.
Yeah, clean windows weren't on the top of the foreclosure list, you know. So I kind of read the writing on the wall a little bit, and I didn't, I look back now, I'm like, man, what would now me do? I might have adapted and overcome, but then me was like, now what? So for 2 years, I did professional blackjack.
Hold on, we got to dive into that.
That could be a whole. If people, I don't think it's on Netflix anymore. It was on Netflix. It's called Holy Rollers: The True Story of Card Counting Christians. There's a documentary about it.
All right, we're not going to gloss over this. So, how did this come about? I had no clue about this.
So, like, I'm in this church world, right? And
these tithes weren't cutting it. So
tithes weren't cutting it. No, I wasn't even like, I wasn't on stat. Like, I wasn't wasn't focused on that at this time. But I was part of like a network of guys that were in ministry, and one of them, who I'm speaking at a conference with next month, actually, we're still really good friends. He comes up to Detroit to play. And he had told me he was playing professional blackjack on a team. And I was like, and it was all like Christian dudes from like these youth ministries. So he comes up to stay at our house. And, I mean, I didn't live in a horrible spot, but the old part of Taylor called Sin City was like where I was at. So, I mean, it was better when I was there, but like it still had a reputation.
I mean, if it's called Sin City, it's probably not awesome.
So he parked his car outside, and he's like, hey, is it safe if I leave my cash in the car? And I'm like, how much cash? And he's like, 70,000.
No.
I'm like, you definitely need to not leave that in your car. Like, even if this was like a nice, really nice spot, you would not want to leave that in your car. And I thought he was joking, but he brought in a lunch bag, and it had freaking $70,000 cash. I'm like, whoa, what is going on, dude? What are you doing? And you're coming to Detroit with $70,000 cash. I'm not like a genius, but something seems off about this. So then he like goes all in and explains it all to me, and I'm like, this is like fascinating. and I'm nothing if not always wanting to challenge myself. So I actually ended up trying out for the team. So I had to drive to Cincinnati or like into Kentucky, but basically Cincinnati. I failed.
Hold on, what are these tryout? What's a tryout like for a professional blackjack team?
So you have to like memorize every playing decision in one of two styles of games, and then you have to be able to estimate the cards remaining as far as like a number of decks and do the math on the fly compared to like the running count that you have. So you have to be able to do all that at once, and you have to be able to do it perfectly. You like if you start making mistakes, then it kind of like negates the advantage you can have. So you have to be like pretty sharp, like on the point. Like you really don't have to be a super smart person. You just have to develop a skill to be able to do it consistently without making errors. So I failed my first time, and that made me want it even more. So then I come home and keep trying to get better. And then
How are you memorizing this stuff? Are you having?
they gave me charts.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I passed and I got on the team, and then I was just traveling playing blackjack, like getting paid by the hour depending on the game and how it was all done. So I made decent money, but I mean, there's a shelf life on that. You can only get kicked out of so many casinos, like, and eventually like there's nowhere else to go to make money.
Yeah. How is it getting kicked out of a casino?
It's fine. It's pretty underwhelming.
But like, was it you walk in and they immediately know that it's you?
The
Because
first time I ever played was at Motor City here in Detroit, and I got kicked out within 15 minutes. The first time I changed my bet, when it was like there was an advantage for me, and I upped my bet.
so they're on it.
They immediately kicked me out. Yeah. So
Did you wear a disguise?
no, I never wore a disguise. I never used fake names, nothing like that. Like I was just like,
So you weren't even trying.
no, because I had a cool story. Like, what do? I own a window washing company. Like, so they just thought I was just some rich dude that owned a window washing company. I didn't really have to make anything up. Like, I wasn't rich, like running the window washing company or anything like that. I made a living, but so yeah, I didn't have to make up any stories or wear disguises or whatever else. So yeah, I did that.
It would have been much cooler if you were wearing disguises.
It would have been. Some people did. Watch the documentary. I think it talks about some of the disguises. But yeah, it was fun, man. I met a lot of cool people. It was a cool experience. Didn't want to keep traveling all that much. Like, okay, I can't do this forever. I had my fun. What am I going to do
Where were you going?
to play?
Yeah.
I would play here at home once a month, best I could. I would play in Indiana. There are some casinos in southern Indiana, like riverboat ones that I would go to. Biloxi, Mississippi was a huge one. And
I feel like that would be wild. I've never been to Mississippi, but
it's hot. It's gross. There's nothing there but those casinos.
okay.
And then and Vegas was another one. California sometimes, but I was in Vegas like once a month. And then Seattle was like where the team was based at, and they had tons of like small Indian casinos there. So I like go out there and play a ton.
Seattle is known as a Christian hub these days.
Is it really?
No.
That's news to me.
So when you're not traveling and competing, what are you doing?
Just trying to kind of work on like ministry stuff, hang out with my kids, my family, practice.
That's not a bad schedule at all.
Yeah, it was all right. But I mean, like then again, and I would only be gone. I would be gone for like 3 days, and make enough money for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
like, it was miserable because I would have to play a ton of blackjack. Like if they were letting you play, then you just played. So
When you said you were getting paid hourly, was it? Did you ever get a percentage of your winnings, or how did that
yeah, so it's an interesting setup. It was like we had investors. So the investors bankrolled us at one point it was 7 figures, right? So let's just say there's $1 million bankroll. When we profited,
split between how many people?
I think there's like 20 to 30 of us, depending on
Okay.
the time. But I mean, it wasn't our money. It was just like what we could play with.
Yeah.
So it was all that cash was divvied up, and every time we profited $100,000, we would close that bankroll. So literally, like you'd be sitting at a blackjack table, get a call, get a text, like, "Hey, stop playing," and then everybody had to check in, and then be like, "Where are you at?" And they would confirm that we were at the 100,000. They would freeze that, and then they would distribute that profit. They had to give the investors their chance to like, are you going to reinvest or whatever, and then they would get their payout. And then part of that was like bonus for us too. Anything over the $100,000 when we closed was then distributed as bonuses to the players, and the bonuses were just based on straight up like the people bringing the most value, like playing the most hands or whatever else, and so we would get like bonus checks. Yeah,
This is wild to me.
yeah.
I
So
had none of my questions that I wrote down involved this. This is crazy.
yeah, so
Who were these investors? Were they like shadowy figures, or did you know who they were?
Some
No, I'm
of
not
them-
asking you to name names.
no. Eventually, we actually became almost entirely team owned, and like I put in like 10 grand. Like I'm putting my own money in, which what the goal behind that was like that was going to reduce.
It's going to up your commission, basically.
Well,
right?
shadiness.
Okay.
If I don't know these investors, maybe I pocket money. But if I'm part owner in the team, I'm only stealing from myself. It doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
So like getting it team owned made more, I think, sense from a practical standpoint. So I'm sure that there were some people that had invested that I have no idea who they ever were. But then eventually, it became like mostly team owned, if not entirely team owned, for at least a little while.
Gotcha. And so at some point you decide to not.
Yeah, I'm like this. I
do
can't. Like this is fun. I made good money, but I can't keep this up forever, right? Like, do I start my own team? I could. I guess I could like find investors, and I could be the one like training people or
I feel like
doing
that'd be right up
stuff.
your alley.
It could be.
Never too late.
Yeah, maybe we'll spin it up again. I don't know. So that's when like my brother became a cop. 2004, I want to say. I think 2003, 2004 with Detroit, and then was at Taylor. And so like I watched him in law enforcement, and then I was like, man, that'd be pretty cool. Like, I guess I just never like. I was a philosophy major. What am I gonna do when I grow up? Like, I just like everything. Everything to me is a side hustle. Everything is like a business. Like that's the way my brain works. I'll never do one thing forever. Like it just won't. It just doesn't interest me. So.
Is he older than you or younger than you?
Younger.
Okay.
So I was like, let me try this. And I was like, well, I'm out of shape. All I've been doing is like smoking cigarettes and drinking and playing blackjack. Like, what am I going to, like, I need to get in shape. So I looked at what the M. Coles test was, and like, the 88-foot cone run, right? I like literally bought 2 logs and it set them in my backyard 88 feet apart. And my wife will tell you to this day, like she sat out there like with a stopwatch timing me, like how I went, like, dude, I remember that first run. I was like, this is a problem. Like, I'm going to have a problem. And so, yeah, I just like trained to the test and then went and took it and passed it. And
how old are you?
32.
Okay.
So did that, and then the clock flipped 33, and I went into the police academy, and then just never stopped. Like from there, like I went right from the police academy into my first department. And
your brother never tried to dissuade you?
No, not really.
What was he telling you about the career? Because I know his story, but
he loved it.
Okay.
Yeah, and his partner, that was like always at our house because we lived in Taylor, and he was a Taylor cop, so like they were over all the time, like playing Guitar Hero and doing whatever else. They loved it. I think there was a season in like every single person, I would say without exception, that I knew that was a cop from those mid 90s when I was working at Meyer and meeting cops. through those two dudes at University of Detroit, through my brother who was at Meyer too. He went from that to being a cop, like, and every partner that he ever brought over to my house that I got to meet or talk to, 100% of them love the job. 100%.
That has changed.
A lot has changed. So I had nothing else to think about it negatively. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a single voice saying, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna hate XYZ. Like, don't do this. You're gonna regret making this decision." There wasn't a single voice saying that. So I was like, well, I mean, my brother had really similar personalities. He was more of like a little bit more of a go along to get along kind of a guy, as far as like steady as she goes, paycheck kind of a guy. I was like,
he wasn't out here arguing with his chief.
Somebody called me tonight and be like, "Hey, there's a chance to win $500,000 if you go to China tonight and sleep on a hammock for 90 days straight." I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna be gone for a while." Like, I'll just like, I'll do whatever. Like, I'm not scared of losing it all. Like, I'll just start again. Like, it doesn't bother me. But yeah, I mean, nobody was trying to dissuade me from it at all.
Okay. So you go to the academy. Were you sponsored by your first department? I don't know if you want to say names, but.
No, I mean, my first department was Oak Park. I don't care what people know if I worked or not now, but no, I was in the process. Like, I started applying right away in the academy to places, and it was hard to get a job then. Like, this was 2009. I tested for Dearborn with like 300 people or something like that. 200, 300 people. Tested for other departments with 100 people. And so I was on the list at a bunch of places, and Oak Park came calling.
Okay.
So,
and what was the academy like for you?
it was all right. I mean, it was fun. We had a class of like 50. I think we only graduated maybe like 46 or something like that, or 44. I don't know. Some people dropped out right away. Other people got shit canned because they cheated or whatever else. But yeah, it was good. It was a good time. I look back on it with like, that was fun. It was a fun experience. I mean, it is what it is. Like, people yelling at you or whatever else. It didn't like. I was 33 years old. Like, my dad punched me in the face when I was in high school, right? So like, the cadre yelling at me, like, I'm like, okay, whatever. Like,
were you the old man?
There was a guy in my class. He's with Livingston County. He was like in his mid 40s.
Okay.
So
I've heard good things about that office, just
really
from what I'm saying, but yeah, just from what I've been hearing. But all right, so you graduate the academy, and then you start at Oak Park. Were they DPS at the time or no? Mm-hmm. So then you had to go fire
after a year. So you're only do the cop gig for the first year.
Okay.
I mean, they might have you help or something like, "Hey, grab me this or grab me that."
It's not that complicated. You put the wet stuff on the hot stuff,
yeah,
right?
It's super not complicated. I could probably do it today. And so, yeah, you just do the cop gig for a year. Super busy department, fun times. And then after the year, you're done with probation. Then they're like, "Okay, we're not going to fire you, so now we'll put you through the fire academy."
Okay.
So then went to the fire academy.
And actually, one question I have here. What was your "I'm a cop now" moment or situation where you realized someone's relying on me, I'm the police, like, this is what I got into this job for?
Oh, that's a good question. There might be a few of those moments. I remember a time, like, I don't know how soon it was after FTO, but there was a couple of dudes that I really looked up to. I actually was really fortunate. I worked with a lot of really good cops, like, when I started. And yeah, to say that I looked up to these guys is not an exaggeration. So like, I really felt like I don't want to let them down. And I remember this guy, maybe it was a domestic, I don't remember anymore, but he was like kind of hiding in the back room, not going to go to jail kind of a thing. And it was like my first fight. Like, I didn't get in any fights like on FTO. And so the fight was on, and like I got into the fray, and I remember like thinking like I can't. This is a no lose situation, right? Like I will not be embarrassed in this moment. Like this is the moment where like I'm going to be judged. Like I remember like being aware like of the situation as it was like escalating. I'm
So
like,
then you hit him with a flying spinning kick.
so I smashed him with my mag light. No. So yeah, I was like, and it worked out great. And these guys that I looked up to, like, it's kind of weird because it makes me sound really young, even though I was like 33. Like the one guy, like who I would say was like the hardest ass guy in the department. Like he was the guy, like, you don't speak it to me, you don't look at me until you like earn the right to do so. And like he fist bumped me at the end of this fight when we got this guy in cuffs, and I was like, whew, all right. Like I felt like that was like the moment I could breathe. And I'm like, all right, like I was dependent on, like I had to show up, and I did. Cool. Right? Like I'm like that was a moment that like, all right, I can do this.
Hell yeah. And did you notice anything changing within yourself when you were, your first couple of years?
I don't remember how long it was into it. I do remember a time a dude got hit. I think he was a homeless dude, but got smoked on 8 Mile by a car. Hit and run. The car was long gone. But this dude got knocked. Had to be like a couple 100 feet. It got smoked. Shoes in one spot, body weight in another, whatever. And we had like, I was on midnights, and we had ordered pizza or something like that for lunch for the shift. And like,
this dude just chose to die right
like,
at that
yeah,
time.
thanks a lot. So I'm like, I'm out there, first guy. So like, I'm on this thing for the duration now, and it's only like 11:30 at night.
Pizza's getting cold.
I'm like, oh geez. So one of the guys on shifts brings me some pizza.
Hell
like
yeah.
I'm standing out there, like got the whole road shut down, all this stuff, waiting for accident investigators and all this, and detectives because the dude's dead. And I remember like eating a piece of pizza, like looking over this guy, and I was like seeing through his head to the ground, and I was like relatively unbothered by this whole situation. And I just remember like thinking, like I like paused in that moment, like this is weird, man. Like I'm eating pizza over a guy with a massive hole in his head that just got hit by a car. Like this is a life-changing event for some people, and I'm like just like eating pizza over this guy. And I was
you probably fondly remember that piece of pizza too. Probably pretty good.
Yeah, it probably was. So I just remember like that was like kind of like a watershed moment of like realizing I had something in me had changed. Because certainly like if you had never been exposed to anything like that, and somebody called you and said like, come see this guy in the street, you'd be like, oh my God, like, what do I do? Like, and then you're going to be nauseous and you're going to be this. I'm like, we're all just like eating pizza around this dude, and that's not, that's like certainly not meaning like, I don't think I'm really callous toward, like I have empathy toward
it's just part of the
lost,
job.
but it's like, you can't invest yourself emotionally in every single thing you see or do. Like you just can't, that's impossible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And did that affect your family life at all? Did becoming a cop affect your family life at all?
It was interesting. I remember like my kids not being super stoked about it, but I think they thought it was kind of cool. Again, my kids all are very used to me changing on a dime or doing something different or whatever else. They've never lacked for anything. Like I've always been there, provided for them. So it's not like, oh, Dad's going to have another failed this or the other thing and ruin my life again. Like they've been taken care of, like always maintain that responsibility. But, yeah, I think that they were supportive for the most part. They were younger.
Yeah. Were you doing any side hustles at the time?
Nah, I worked a ton I got laid off from Oak Park, corrupt government will do that. So I got
It wasn't just you. It was like a mass.
It was a big
thing,
layoff.
right?
Yeah, it was like it cut 10 years deep. It was big. So we knew it was coming ahead of time. I put my app out there everywhere. Ultimately, my feet landed at Southgate, but the downside was I was one pay away from top out at Oak Park, which would have put me at like 32 an hour or something like that. They paid really good. Like I started at 23 an hour, which was pretty good. Like there's some other PDs like Sterling Heights or something like that pay really good, but
now Oak Park is like one of the top in the state too, so they've kept that going.
Yeah, so I should have stayed, but I also wasn't a huge fan of the public safety part. Like I didn't get jazzed about that. Like it wasn't horrible, but I was happy. I was much happier to just have the singular focus. And
so for those that aren't in Michigan or familiar with public safety, can you explain that?
Different departments do it different ways, but basically it's police and fire. So you're dual certified.
Don't some of them do ambulance too, or no?
The only one I've ever heard of that is Genesee County. They do paramedic and cop.
God,
so they're not fire.
Awful.
They're just paramedic and cop.
It's ridiculous.
So that, I don't know, like, how do you do that? So like in Kalamazoo, you're either one or the other at any given time, any given shift bid. So like it's more senior guys that end up at the firehouse because it's a lazier job.
Yeah.
And so, but at Oak Park, the way it worked was 2 guys would be inside. They took lobby reports and babysat prisoners and booked all the prisoners. So that was always nice if you're on the road when you brought somebody in, somebody helped, at least helped, if not booked your prisoner while you went back out and just kept going.
Yeah.
So you had that advantage, but so you stayed 2 in, and then if there was a fire call, one person would be called in off the road, and the 2 guys inside would drive the ladder and the engine truck to the fire scene, and then one person inside would be like the only person inside because all the bosses had to go to the fire scene and all that stuff. So it was like you just carried your fire gear in your trunk.
Okay.
And if you had a fire call, you left whatever you were doing unless it was like a life or death situation and headed to the fire. Yeah, so it was doing both.
So if you're in one of these cities that has a DPS, the secret is light something on fire and then go commit your crime.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you have warrants and they show up to your house in fire gear and say there's a gas leak and everybody needs to get out, don't fall for it. You're going to get arrested.
So that's a thing.
It's definitely a thing. I definitely did that.
Hell yeah. What did you learn about yourself in this time period, becoming a cop?
Becoming a cop or through the process of
We'll do both.
all the policing?
Well, no, not through all police. Like the first couple of years. Because I know you had a lot of, I don't know if you want to get into it, but I know you had a lot of different things happen to you at that time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think my self-confidence skyrocketed. Like, I became someone who I think always respected the people. Like, you go back to, like, what I said, watching the guys that when the shoplifters ran, they got to go, like, close the deal. You know, like, go get it done.
Yeah.
Like, where I was unable to do that, like they were the ones that you could depend on catching them. Like, hell yeah, you know, like that feeling. Like, I think my confidence skyrocketed, like becoming that guy, like becoming a guy on shift that, like, if you were going on a call, you know, you wanted me with you. And maybe not everybody felt that way. I don't say that like with a sense of like bragging or ego.
Yeah.
I'm saying like I felt like I grew into that kind of person. Mm-hmm. Like, of course, I'm sure there's people that hate my guts or think I suck, whatever. I'm sure that that's true, but
they're in your Facebook comments.
Yeah, they're there every day. But I really do feel like that has carried, that one aspect has translated into every other area of my life in a positive way. So like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, now in real estate or any other side hustle that I'm doing or have done, like I can be the guy. Like I can take that pressure of people depending on me to get it done. So like I think that translated to how I led my family, my peer groups, my activities, the things that I'm doing. Like I'm okay being a leader. Like I'm okay stepping up and saying like I'll do it or whatever. I want to be there. If I'm not going to be the first to the door, I want to be as close as possible. So I think like it was probably like always there in me on some level, but I don't think that I really got to experience it until like I experienced it. And I think that characteristic has like just continued to be the biggest impact for everything else. So when I think I got off FTO May, June, maybe. It was longer. It was like 4.5 months. So I got off FTO around then, May or June of 2010. And then in July, my brother was shot and killed in Taylor. So then that was harder on my kids to be like, well, you're not going back, are you? Right? Like you're not going to, like clearly this job is not good. If it took our uncle, there's no way. And for me, there was never even, I can honestly say there was never a moment that I ever even thought that I wouldn't go back. So, but I think that was like hard for my kids. So navigating that was like a challenge, I think.
How did you navigate that with them?
I think it was more of just saying like, this was the job your uncle did. So if he was willing to do this for his community, like I can't be less of a person for that. And that's not to say that like if somebody's a teacher or a freaking concrete layer that they're not valuable to the community, but a way to serve your community in that capacity. And it was like, would your uncle want me to quit?
Sounded like he liked the job. So
yeah, exactly. Not. Like he was proud of what he did and loved every minute of it. And would he want me to quit? Just like, because why? And I think it was good too, because I think part of that grieving process was for us, it was a theological lesson, because we're not in control of circumstances that are beyond our control. So if that's the case, then what of? I mean, I wasn't doing anything risky that I knew of when I was in a rollover car accident. Like I didn't make that guy drink and drive on the wrong side of the road. Like shit happens.
Yeah.
This is life in a fallen world. So quitting a job that I loved, and that I felt like embody those kind of characteristics that honored our family and did good things, just stopping that and going to be a pencil pusher doesn't mean that I'm not going to get hit by a bus.
Yeah,
and
you
then
can
what?
die any day.
And then what? What did I teach my kids then? That walking away from something when it gets difficult is the answer, or not trusting that, there's bigger forces at play in this life that we don't control, and we can only control how we respond to it. So I think that's like how I navigated it, and I don't think it was easy. Especially my two older kids, like they definitely struggled through
Yeah.
that. But,
how old were they at the time? Well, one was 13 or 14.
Yeah, my daughter would have been 13, or just turning 13, and then my oldest son would have been 10.
Okay.
So yeah.
And how was the discussion with your wife in terms of that? Was she on the same page of you going back to it? Or?
Yeah, she never tried to discourage me. I don't even know if she even asked me, like, if I was sure. Like, I think she knew. Like, I think as much as I never even thought it, like, it never even crossed my mind to not go back. Like, I think she knew that from the very beginning. I don't think there was ever a moment where she was like, I wonder if he's going to keep doing this job or not. So I think she was nothing but supportive, really.
Okay. And then, so you said there was the layoff at Oak Park, and then I don't know if you mentioned Southgate yet.
Yeah, that's where my feet landed ultimately.
Okay. And how was that going to a full service police department, not a DPS?
I enjoyed it. I had to learn to police a little bit differently for a little bit. I mean, we were busy, but like my first traffic stop with my first FTO, and pull this car over, and there's like 4 guys inside. I got them all out of the car, handcuffed them all, sit them on the curb, and it was just like for like speeding. But I didn't do that stuff like in Oak Park. Like I didn't like really do traffic.
Yeah.
Like so much.
Not for the sake of like tickets. I'm guessing.
Like so. There's 4, and on FTO they tell you treat it like you're a 1-man.
Yeah.
Like 2-man. Well, I'm pulling a car over with 4 deep. They're all sitting down, man. Like, I'm not leaving them in the car while I'm talking to one of them. That ain't happening.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see all 4 of these dudes. And he's like, "What?" And I remember like getting in the car. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "A traffic stop." He's like, "Why? Why are you doing this?" I'm like, "I'm being safe, man." I'm like, "You see those 4 guys right there?" Yeah. So do I. Yeah, like, and so I had to kind of like adjust a little bit because it just wasn't like how that department like did stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. It was fun, and then I think like I kind of grew into it there, and I would say that I was definitely like more aggressive of a cop, and they kind of like started giving me longer leash when they realized like I wasn't like just being boneheaded. But yeah.
Okay. And at what point did you start doing the social media stuff and become Mike the cop?
my full metamorphosis. I would say it was like spring of 2014. I started writing a blog. I started a blog called Cop Life. Had a website, started a Facebook group. Yeah, super creative. And I just started like sharing thoughts, experiences.
This is like a diary, but online, basically.
Kinda, yeah. Yeah, it was more like almost like just reflection, almost like out loud journaling, the way that like the style of things that I was doing, and people just responded to it really, really well. And that was like a heyday of Facebook, man. Like I grew up a 30,000 member Facebook group like pretty quickly, and I was like, well, this is interesting. Like, there's something here. And then I crossed paths with another lady named Tristy, and she wrote an article that went like insanely viral called Dear Officer. And so we synced up, and then we started, and she had a Facebook group called Humanizing the Badge. We ultimately like just merged the two things and started doing stuff together. We had no idea what we were doing. But we took like a bunch of like the best posts that like had performed the best on our blogs and made a coffee table book.
Okay.
And so we put that out, and then we were like, well, what else are we going to do to keep growing this? Because we were like trying to like give back to the law enforcement community. Like, what are we going to do? Like, her kid had some like medical issues, so we're like, maybe we just raise money to give back to cops with kids with disabilities. Didn't know what we were going to do, but we knew we needed to get more eyes on the organization. And at the time, this Officer Daniels guy is on Vine, and I only knew that not because I had Vine, but because my kid showed me, like, look at this guy, he's funny. Like, I'm like, there's no way that dude's a cop. no way. So I was like, well, I could try like making a video or something like that and see if that draws attention. Video is pretty new, so this was like late 2015, And so I made a video, and it like went viral, the first one.
Was it the what not to say to a cop video?
No, I think it was like a Vine with my my oldest son-in-law in the back of the car, and I think I did like if cops talk like pilots. I think it was like one of my first ones, like with him, and it was like a roller coaster ride, like sit back and enjoy the hard plastic seats or something like that, and enjoy the ride. And it was like so short, and then it like took off.
Okay.
And then like I was like, oh, okay, well, like that worked. And right time, right place, right format, I guess. And then it just never stopped. And then it got like so much attention. I was like, it was like actually counterproductive, because now I was making this content, but that's not why we started humanizing the badge. Mm-hmm. Like that's not what we wanted to highlight other people, not me. So that's when I was like, I'm going to just start my separate account. And I'll, again, genius name, Mike the Cop, like not a lot of thought process in this. Put that out there. That way I can point to humanizing the badge. Like I can push people back there, but what they'll see on that page is like stuff about other people.
Yeah.
Like not me. Like it's not the Mike show over here. If they want to watch my content that I make, they can like look at Mike the Cop or whatever. And that's when it started and just never stopped.
Okay. So backing up a little bit for the blog portion, I didn't even know you had a blog. I just know you through the videos.
Yeah.
And so what kind of, I know with the philosophy major, you like to write all that stuff. What was the idea behind that? Were you just like, what was the idea behind that, I guess?
I think part of me just felt like my experiences from the first like 5 years of policing, I was like, I can't be the only one that thinks like this or feels these things or whatever. And if I could share my experiences in a way that could benefit other people, then I'm happy to do that. And so it was like kind of like a two-way street, a benefit, like a win-win. Win for me because it was kind of like cathartic to like express my thoughts. Like they weren't just inside anymore. I was putting them somewhere and giving them like shape. So it made me process the things that were in my mind. And then simultaneously people were being impacted by it. So I felt like, well, this is good. Like they're benefiting from it because it's encouraging to them. And I'm benefiting from it because it's helping me to sort of like not hold on to stuff. I can just like write about it.
And were you writing it under some kind of pen name or?
No, just like Mike. I think that's what I was. I'm not 100% sure. I think I was just like on the blog was just like Mike the Cop. I think that's like what I was just writing as.
Okay.
And then like a company launched like Uniform Stories, and I started writing for them, which subsequently got sold to like Police One or something like that. So like there's a variety of articles out there that were under Mike the Cop, and I think that's why I just like kept the name. Like, you know.
Okay. Did your department know about it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't care about an anonymous blog anyway, but they saw me doing like humanizing the badge and events and putting together, you know, support for cops and helping with fundraisers and all this other stuff. So when the video stuff came up, that was like easy. That was an easy sell for me. I looked at the policy and I just went to my admin, and before I ever made a video, I was like, hey, we want to keep growing humanizing the badge. We think video might help. I'm going to make some videos. Like, is there anything I'm missing other than, you know, don't show my badge or patch? And there's like, no, just as long as it's showing law enforcement in a positive light. That was pretty much like the policy, but different than a lot of what we call like TikTok cops now.
I was definitely going to ask about
like,
that. Explain what a TikTok cop is for the layman out there.
These days, I would say a TikTok cop is somebody who is making content in uniform or about being in uniform that ultimately is for the sole purpose of only drawing attention to themselves. Like, there's no bigger purpose like than that.
These videos typically involve dancing.
Lip syncing, dancing, which in and of itself isn't necessarily bad, but it's like, okay, like I think it's not helping the profession at this point. So for me though, it was like my first video was late 2015. I had been doing this stuff for a year and a half. And so it wasn't like out of the blue, like, hey, I want to make some videos on the internet. It was like, hey, video is this strategy that we think might be able to draw attention to our nonprofit. Like, and it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to start a nonprofit or I'm going to start to do good things. It was like, I'd already been doing it. And so that helped like go a long way. And they gave me a lot of leeway, you know, and I never abused it really. I tried not to.
Had you been public up to that point, or was it all just like faceless writing kind of stuff?
It's all pretty much faceless.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there was some like live streams or something where my face was online somewhere, maybe, but
you weren't getting recognized anywhere.
No. Yeah. It wasn't until the video started taking off.
Okay. And so you get into the videos. There's obviously a very large range of topics covered in the videos. So just kind of talk to us about that.
At first, Vine was 6.5 seconds. So you had to like, which is actually harder than it sounds, to make a really good video in 6.5 seconds. I kind of wish it was that way still. I think it would like force better creativity, but it was all about translating my experiences as a cop into a way that would make non-cops, that cops would get, and they would be like, they would get a kick out of it, but also like non-cops could also laugh at. It wasn't just like inside jokes. It was like scenarios and situations that were like relatable, but also real. So I was like, and it was just based on all my like real experiences. Like I just took it and it's like translated into like thinking this would be funny.
And at what point did you start getting your son involved? Because I know there's quite a few videos of him being abused online.
Yeah, hooking up jumper cables to his nipples. It was actually fish wire. We had to like measure the fish wire exactly so it really looked like it was attached to his nipples. We did a lot of effort for 6.5 seconds, dude. Really, really early on, man. Like I had my kids as like involved as like I could. Yeah, really early on, and because he wanted to be a YouTuber, and so like he got to kind of be a part of that. And what's funny is now he works on like massive YouTube channels. Like he's behind a lot of really big channels and their content, and he's kind of like living his dream in a different kind of way that he had as a kid to be a YouTuber. But yeah, we had him in the furnace room at my old house, which was about as big as this table area here, shipping T-shirts and challenge coins, and he wanted to do like this videography stuff, and it might have been Christmas of 2016, so things had really taken off, and we had this idea for a Silent Night video, and so we were at Best Buy on like I think December 22nd maybe, like we were trying to release this on Christmas Eve, so we had to film it and edit it and release it on the 24th. So we're at Best Buy. I'm calling Tristy, that my partner at the time, is like, and she's like a photographer. Like, what do we do? Like, what equipment do we get? So we bought this camera and all this stuff. It wasn't charged. We went right to Southgate PD, and I had a buddy of mine at I don't remember what station house he was at for Detroit Fire, and we went there. And I mean, it only took 5 minutes, and we were out at a car fire, like filming. We had great footage. Like, all right, we got fire. Now let's go get police. Like, and we like set up all these shots and whatever. And it was like I'd be on the phone with one of my buddies at the PD, like, hey, all right, we're on this call. Like, hey, on the way to the next one, like, hit your lights as you're coming under this overpass. Like, so we were up on this bridge, like filming, just waiting, and then in between every shot, we would go back inside the PD and charge the batteries again because we just bought this thing; it had no charge, and then Elijah like found free editing software and like edited this video, and then like from there he was like hooked, and so then he started like being in the videos, helping me edit them, because I was an idiot, dude. I'm like a middle-aged man on social media. I didn't know what I was doing.
So at what point did you realize, hey, I might have something here?
I mean, pretty early on. I mean, like that year, 2016, really. I mean, that year was everything, because I transitioned out of full-time police work the summer of 2017. So it took like a year and a half to like ramp. It just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I just had more opportunities in front of me. So.
And what were some of those opportunities? I know you've been linked up with like Black Rifle and
I got connected with Black Rifle, so I had kind of like a brand deal with them. I had through that, like, had opportunities. That's what I ended up actually leaving for, was another full-time gig doing social media marketing and acquiring other social media influencers to a company that could handle like their merch. So it allowed me to keep growing like the cop, make more long form content than I had time or energy to do before, and do this other job, which was a whole new skill set that I learned, like sales and marketing.
They didn't teach you that in philosophy school.
No. So yeah, I mean, that was like, then it was off to the races from there for different businesses. That led into real estate in 2018, and then here we are now. So
you said a couple minutes ago, with your brother's passing, that it was just like a foregone conclusion. Like, I'm staying in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And so a few years later, 6-7 years later, you've got this Mike the Cop thing going. And what was the decision-making process like with getting out of full-time law enforcement?
I don't think that I ever would have, if I would have had a way to advance at my department. So when I got laid off at Oak Park and went to Southgate, everything reset. So all special jobs there. So SWAT, narcotics, K9, whatever, name it. Any FBI task force, DEA task force, all of that was based on 3 years minimum at that department. Not total, that department. So as that time went on, those jobs kept getting filled in front of me because I didn't have the 3 years at Southgate. So the one that I saw on the horizon was going to be DEA. So I went to interdiction school, hammered interdiction every chance I got my bosses on board. Like, a lot of them, again, like, I worked with great, honestly, for the most part, a lot of great people. Like, even my bosses, they let me, like,
even the bosses.
Yeah. I mean, they were like, we would get our pending calls out of the way, like, early on a midnight shift. And as soon as I could get up on the expressway, when our volume went down, I was up there running interdiction. And then I would come down if I needed to, and I would work that till 2 or 3 in the morning, get what I could, and they kind of were really cool about letting me do that. I mean, we were getting work done. So, I mean, it was like, we weren't just up there dicking around, getting no results, but, so I did everything that I possibly could to be the guy that got the most dope, the most money, the most warrants, the most weapons, the most anything that I could get. I wanted to be the best at it and set myself up to where, like, when I walked into that interview for DEA task force, like, they had to say yes. Like, there would be nobody better in the department to pick. Unfortunately, there was some finagling behind the scenes between 2 senior guys, the guy coming out and a guy that had just been brought in from another task force that was now in the monkey suit again and didn't want to be. And he wanted to kind of go back out. He only had like 2 years left of retirement, or 3 years left or whatever. And they made like a little flip-flop so that this guy was next to be promoted and he would get to go right to road boss instead of having to go to patrol. Mm-hmm. If I would have gotten it.
Yeah.
So that finagling, or I just sucked and no one ever told me and didn't get the job. So then I was facing like a situation where I had already been a cop for, 8 years, 8.5 years, and I was an FTO. I'd done interdiction. I chased the bad guys. Like, outside of shooting someone or being shot, which came very close, in different situations. Like, not necessarily trying to go for that, but like, I seen everything else. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you can't tell from conversation with me, I don't like. I need change. Like, I don't like things like always staying the same. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'll change it if it doesn't change. And I was looking at a situation where the detective bureau or any other special teams or anything was like going to be years out. And I was just kind of like, I have this job offer in front of me. I didn't get this spot that I wanted, that I would have been farmed out for 5-6 years, and then I would have come back as a boss, and I could have rode out the rest of my time. I could have done side hustle stuff, whatever. But not getting that combined with a job offer that was going to pay me more than I made as a cop and needing a change. Like, I felt like I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm just not going to keep pushing this scout car for another 3 years. I'm just not going to do it. So yeah, that was really the catalyst. And I still stayed, I got a part-time gig because I still enjoyed doing police work. I didn't hate it. So then that really became, an ongoing thing for a few more years as far as part-time work. But that was the catalyst to get out, was needing change, needing to advance, like wanting to do something better for my family besides kill myself with overtime and not be like, it's one thing if I did overtime and then got a position that I really, really enjoyed. But if I was going to just like stay in that same, I felt like I was stuck in a rut and I didn't want to stay there.
All right. And then, so you transitioned to part-time and you did that at a couple different places, right? For like 3 years.
Yeah.
And so in total, you were in law enforcement for like 11 or 12, something like
11
that.
some years. Yeah.
So how did you see law enforcement change during your career? So from 2009 to like 2020 or 2021?
Yeah. I feel like August of 2014 was when I think the Ferguson stuff went down, Michael Brown, that changed policing, hands down. That whole situation, it changed the way that the media portrayed cops. I felt like there was like a full court press now from the media side of things, with an anti-cop slant bias. So I saw that happen. Didn't feel that going in before then. There was like a palpable shift culturally.
So specifically, how did you see it? Like if there's an instance or whatever, you're like, all right, something has changed.
Well, media coverage, like just watching the news.
Okay.
Like that for sure. But even I think like traffic stops, different calls, like the prevalence of that shooting like shifted people's mindsets, and I saw it like in real time. And so I saw that shift, and then subsequently I saw weak leadership bowing. That's when like a lot of like sensitivity training started coming into play. A lot of second guessing everybody. We don't want to be the next place that has a riot. Like a lot of that unfolding. And so I really started to lose respect for a lot of like the police leadership, followed by sitting in a legal brief, with the Wayne County prosecutor saying like, if it's not 25 grams of heroin or cocaine, don't even think about bringing it felony. Just do local. And I remember like pulling over a car with 3 dudes who definitely dealt drugs with like 20 some bindles of heroin, and they all got a $500 ticket and went home that night. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here right now?
Yeah.
Like I saw that in my own career. Like I went from like locking people up for a bindle of heroin to they could have 25 grams of it and they're going to get a ticket and go home. Right. And that was like freaking 2016. So you're talking like 7 years later now. It's even way worse now. Like the things that people get away with, and the justice system like second guessing. And maybe it's coincidental, but I really feel like that Ferguson situation like made a massive cultural wave that had an impact across the board. And then non-idiots were getting out of the profession. Like, and who are the kind of people going to come in behind them? Like, I already saw those guys that I looked up to and didn't want to let down. The guys coming in that I saw, like, and I know it's an overgeneralization, not every one of them, but like as a general rule, they weren't as interested in not letting me down, if that makes sense. You know, like, and I saw this like trend toward people weren't sitting down taking a civil service test against hundreds of other people anymore. They were like, good enough. Like, we need bodies, you know? And so I feel like from 2014 to 2020, when I finally like hung it up, like, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
2020 was a bad time.
And that didn't help. It wasn't like, and I don't think a pendulum ever swung. Like, it just like started in 2014 and just kept getting worse. And I'm a little bit removed from it now for a few years. Some departments seem to be relatively unaffected, and others are like horrible.
Yeah.
So,
looking back on your career, would you change anything besides, getting the DEA spot?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I don't regret things. Like, I wish I would have had the Oak Park money. But I wrote a letter to the acting public safety director at the time that says, if you ever call people back, don't make me one of them, because I never want to work for a liar.
Let's digest that one a little bit.
Turns out that he didn't hire me back. Other people went and got other jobs and stayed away. Some people came back. Some people did go back to the department. And yeah, I don't regret being honest, but I miss the money. I wouldn't have had to kill myself on overtime. But then again, like, the whole, what are you going to do? You can't. You can imagine what it may have been like if that never happened or something like that. But
yeah. Do you ever miss the job? I know somebody asked you this recently on Instagram, but
yeah, I mean, no, not really. Like, I don't miss the job. I sometimes miss the camaraderie, like having interaction with people on that level. But overall, no, I've never like missed a night of sleep over. Because I said, like, I feel like I had a full career. Like, I feel like I saw a lot, did a lot, and yeah, I could have done it twice. I could have done another 11 years and seen all the same things.
Yeah.
But I felt like I did it. Mm-hmm. So I'm good. I can move on, So.
And I know you've got a story about hanging it up officially. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go into that or no?
Yeah, I'll go into whatever you want.
All right. So let's hear your hanging it up story. What was the decision to officially give up the part-time gig, and how did you do it?
So I was already in this mindset, especially after George Floyd incident happens, then Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta, and the cop that shot him, I've talked to him at length. Talked to him pretty quickly after the incident, actually. He was fired within 24 hours. And
for those that don't remember, the Rayshard Brooks incident was the one where the dude was passed out in the McDonald's or Wendy's parking lot in Atlanta, and they got him out. And they got into a little scuffle. It was two officers. They got into a scuffle. He grabbed one of them's taser and ran off and turned back and fired the taser at him, and then they shot him.
Yep. And got fired.
Yeah.
So, and I remember like driving on my midnight shift at my part-time gig,
How they put you on mids on a part-time?
Oh yeah, always.
That's
Always. It does suck. I was like, why do I give up my weekends for this? I'm like, doggone it. I remember like driving through like intersection one time, and there's a couple like bikers. It was like closing time at a bar or something like that, and I didn't have any interaction with them, but definitely like there was some known issues with.
You were in a police car?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm just like, man, if I pull those guys over and shit goes sideways in this intersection, like I'm just like one incident away from being that guy. And now I've got businesses, you know, I'm making better money than I did when I was a cop, you know, full time or whatever. And I'm like, man, I'm just one stop away from going to jail, going to prison, losing this job, getting sued. Like I felt like my family had been willing to basically give me up for those years, you know, like support me going out there doing this job. And now I was in a position to give back to my family more. And here I am kind of like doing the cop thing on the weekend midnights. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. Like at this point, what am I doing? Like
why? What dragon am I chasing?
I'm going to stop this guy in an intersection, get in a shooting, justified or not. Do you think someone around here in our areas, prosecutor-wise, is going to be looking to be my friend? You know, like, no.
Probably not.
So I'm like, and I was starting to feel like uneasy about it now at that point. Like, not about the job, but about like what the impact of a decision like that or a situation could be now to my family. Like they gave me up for all these years. I say I'm playing cop on the weekends. Like I'm not just putting my life at risk. I'm putting their future at risk now at this point. Yeah. Because like now they really like depend on me as far as like I built this business. I need to keep it growing. Like, man, I just felt like this tension. And then when the COVID stuff happened, there was like these, you need to go check this restaurant to make sure there's people wearing masks or they're closed down. They're not serving people like behind closed doors and whatever. I'm like, bro, you got the wrong guy. Like I'm like, has anyone heard of the Constitution? Because I think we should probably like apply that here. Like the governor mandated it. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't take an oath for it. The governor mandate. Like that's not what I swore to uphold and defend. I can't do this. Is like I'm not even gonna go down that road. So like those kind of things like coupled, I just like called the sergeant like you like I'm coming in. I'm turning in my shit like now, and that was it. Like I didn't look back after that. I felt like total relief. Like good. I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Okay, and then let's kind of, before we get into your businesses, I know you're a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. You host training classes for cops right now. So when did you start jiu-jitsu and why?
I think I tried a couple of classes in like 2010 a little bit. I think I put my kids in it, like down at Chris Blanky's place in Toledo. We lived in Temperance at the time, and
that's a far drive to Oak Park.
Well, I would. This was like 2000. Oh no, yeah. That was a far drive. So that's a whole situation. We had sold a house, and then we had moved in with my parents down in Temperance for like 5 months, and then moved right back into our friend's house in the same neighborhood that we just sold our house from. So there's like a period where we were down there. So like my buddy Dave, who is now a retired cop, he was telling me I was doing like in the academy Krav Maga or whatever. So I just kept doing that. So that's what I was doing outside of like working hours. I would go to Krav class like 2 or 3 times a week because that's what I learned in the academy. So that's what I kept doing. even though I felt like I was at like a cardio kickboxing class with a bunch of ladies, soccer moms or something like that. I'm like, well, supposedly this is going to help. What else would a cop do besides rip an Adam's apple out whenever they get a chance, So
It's a roadhouse.
yeah. So I dabbled in some classes. My buddy Dave was like, you got to do jujitsu, I'm like, whatever. And then I never really had a lot of time or energy to do it, and probably more interest than anything else. But then 2012, when I went to Southgate, there was Downriver Jiu-Jitsu was in Southgate. So they had class at 7 p.m. at night. And so I would either, when I was on midnights, I would train on my off nights because that was my normal time to go to work. So I would train on my off nights. And then, that was it. And then when I went to day shift, then I would get off at 7 if I didn't have like a last call or something like that, and then sneak over to class. And I started training like 2012. So 2012 through 2017, I was like probably a 2 time a week, 3 time a week, maybe on a really good week was 3 times, but it's usually like twice with the schedule. And I worked an ungodly amount of overtime. So twice a week was good. And then in 2017, when I went part-time, I started training at 313 in Detroit, and they had like 4 classes a day, and I went ham. Like I trained 6 days a week for a while. Like I was there all the time. And that's when like I was like still like a 1 stripe or 2 stripe blue belt or something like that for like 5 years, and I think I got my blue belt in like 2013 or something like that. And I was a blue belt for like almost 5 years, like just barely training. But then when I went to 313, I started training a lot. And I got my purple belt there. And then the instructor that we kind of like were most connected to there left the state. And then we were at Warrior Way for a while, making the long ass drive.
It's always that whole area is inconvenient to get to from pretty much anywhere.
It's no bueno, man. Great people, like phenomenal jiu-jitsu. I loved it. But then 275 went under construction at some point, and it was like there was days where it was like an hour and 40 minutes to get to class. And I'm in there for an hour, and then I'm driving back. I'm like, I can't keep doing this. So I was like between MASH and Warrior Way. And then my buddy Jeff got his black belt and opened his own academy in Wyandotte. And I finally was like, this is 10 minutes from my house. What am I doing? I'm just going to go here. Like, it was a smaller academy, so it's a big change because I went from like,
yeah, Warrior Way is pretty big.
Yeah, like not unusual like to have a class where there's like 50, 60 people, like there's 3 people here.
Yeah.
Like so it was a big change for me, but so yeah, then I've been there ever since.
What did you see in terms of, I know for the beginning you were just training a couple times a week, but did you see it translate into on the road performance?
Yeah, big time. Yeah. And not so much even like necessarily like skill level per se, but which I think that came in time. Like the me of 2016 or 2017 was way better than the me of 2013 jiu-jitsu wise, like actual skill. But I think the biggest deal was like, if you've ever trained jiu-jitsu, you're going to get smashed. And when you're getting smashed, like you learn how to either keep getting smashed or you learn how to calm down and make some adjustments. And so I think that had the biggest carryover to where when you had to go hands-on with somebody, like when your heart rate stays low, you think clearer, like you make better decisions. And so like it definitely translated to a calmness. And I think that the more you get good at like combative skill, the less you actually need to use them, because there's a certain vibe. And certainly if there's cops that listen to this, they'll understand like what command presence is or there's everybody knows vibe on some level. You can walk into a room and you feel things. Like, we're sort of like advanced animals in that sense, right? Like, there's a sense of who can do what in the room. And I think like having that confidence like translates so well into police work. So when you walk into a situation, like, you can be calm and assertive and clear, but I think that there's a vibe coming off of you that you're in charge.
Yeah.
And you might not be intimidated in the same ways that you would be otherwise. If you truly knew you, because there are cops out there who will be intimidated by people, because at the end of the day, they really do know that they have no skill.
Oh, 100%.
So then they overcompensate. And so I think like those two things were like good for my police career.
Mm-hmm. The biggest thing, like when people ask me, like cops ask me, oh, well, do you use it on the streets? Like, I'm not necessarily, like, I'm not triangling anybody on the street, but it's
Right.
just a matter of like the body awareness, things slow down. So like, I'm used to people grabbing me. Mm-hmm. So the body awareness, I'm not like freaking out about having to grab somebody. Like, everything just slows down, and it's you have more control over yourself, and then you can translate that
Right.
into more control over the person. So
Yeah.
what have you learned about yourself through training?
I mean, I think that my jiu-jitsu reflects my personality. I wonder if that's true of everybody. I don't know. I guess it never, because there's a lot of times, dude, like where like you can see like some total nerd will like wreck your world,
Oh, yeah.
like, and it's like, is that really his personality? Like, but maybe not. Maybe it's like, because there's a thinking element. So if like you go all in on the thinking element of jiu-jitsu and can get your body to go along with it, maybe you're not like always trying to be like the aggressive person, but you can certainly manhandle people. But yeah, I mean, I just learned persistence. I'm not that good at jiu-jitsu, but I just keep showing up. Like, you get injured, you run into difficulty, you have to deal with it, you have to learn it, you have to adapt and grow. Like, there's only one way to get better, and that's to keep being bad over and over and over again. And then you think, like, when you first start training jiu-jitsu and you like roll with a purple belt and you think they're a god, like, and then all of a sudden you're there and you're like, dude, I suck. Like, I don't know anything. You feel like you're like, what? And I think like the good black belts will tell you, like, yeah, surprise.
Yeah, there's
like,
levels.
You get here and then like it's like you're starting all over again at black, and to like learn, and it's like it truly is never ending. Mm-hmm. Like, I even saw Garmo's video. I don't know when he posted it, but I saw it today, where he's talking about like the evolution of training. Like,
Yeah, that was today.
yeah, you'll learn something one way, and you might be learning, you might adjust that or learn a variation or a different way to think about it, like a few months later, a few years later. But there's not like this jiu-jitsu 1 through 100, and as soon as I get to the 100 and I can demonstrate my proficiency there, I've arrived.
Unless you're in the Gracie thing.
Yeah. Certainly that's helpful, I think, like from like a beginner to like get you in the door, mm-hmm. right? Like that white to blue belt, maybe kind of a thing. Like, here's like all these sort of like basic movements and principles. But from there, it's like the game never ends. So
When it can completely change based on your proportions, your body type. Like Garmo
For sure.
talks all the time about, like, he's not going to be locking up body triangles on anybody. So he's like 5'6.5".
Yeah.
And like, so his style is going to be a lot different than somebody, that's 6'2" or whatever. So
Yep.
yeah, it's awesome. It's an awesome sport. We already talked about the benefits. Where can cops link up with you to train, and where are you training right now?
I'm training at Bear's Den and Wyandotte, and I guess they can link up with me just by messaging me or something. I don't have a website or anything.
But the point I was trying to get to was there's Friday classes at 8:30 a.m.
Yeah. Every Friday, 8:30, you can come to the Bear's Den and Wyandotte, and yeah, you just sign a waiver in case you die, and we'll help you will help you think about things. And I think the big misconception about cops like looking at jiu-jitsu is they think, well, it's pointless. I don't want to be rolling around. I don't want to
talk my way out of
rolling
every
around with
situation.
somebody, or I don't want to go to the ground. And it's like, well, no, nobody like, I don't go to work hoping to end up on the ground. Like, of course,
Unless you
not.
work loss prevention at Meyer
Yeah.
in the 90s.
But you have to, like, I try to explain this to cops. It's like every resisting subject ends up on the ground, even if it's a vertical ground, like AKA a wall or a car
yeah.
or something. Like, they're against something. You're grappling. Like, that's what is happening. And so do you want to be better at that, which is like 99% of your resistance is grappling? You know, like, well, I got a taser. Well, I got a taser firearm. Like, and we were just talking about that Grand Rapids situation. Like, I mean, it was 100% justified, right, from a legal perspective. But I watched that video and I'm like that was endable.
Yeah.
Like in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like with proper knowledge. And
the
so,
event he's talking about is the Patrick Layoya shooting from April 2022 in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
yeah. So that's not a knock on the officer. I'm just saying if he knew, like, and he's not in the minority of cops.
No, he's in the vast majority.
Don't know what, like, I hate to say it, like, don't know what they're doing when it comes to physical control. They all, cops in general are very reliant on their secondary tools, or they're reliant on the pig pile, like the just overwhelming force, like a weight.
Yeah.
Like that's gravity works in their favor most of the time. Like,
where does that end up? On the ground.
yeah, exactly, on the ground. And so, cops desperately need to train, and it's free. It's MCOLS, which is like the governing body of Michigan for law enforcement, and we use the effective fitness combatives material, which any state that they're in is gonna they'll already presented their material to that state before they teach it there. So it's always going to be compliant to whatever state the curriculum is being taught in properly. So, yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Jay Wadsworth and the boys. They are doing some good stuff for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so segueing off of the choking people realm, what got you into real estate?
My buddy Chris, who found himself unemployed in Arizona because of an injury as a cop, got into real estate and kind of started figuring some things out and was like, man, you'd be good at this. You should do this. And I kept putting it off for years, like 3 years. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And because my idea of a realtor was like some weird glamour shots lady on a business card. I'm like, no, thanks. I don't want that. I don't want anything to do with that. And so I finally relented and said, all right, I'll get my license and we'll see what it's like. And of course I hated it. I was like, I knew I would hate this. But fortunately,
why did you hate it?
Because it was just salesy douchebag world. It had nothing to do with that. Like, I don't wear button ups really. Like, fashion's not my thing. Wanting a fast, awesome car is not my thing. Like, I just don't care. Like, I literally do not care what I drive. I do not care what I wear. So, and that was like all they seemed to be obsessed with. And I don't like cold calls. I don't like selling people something. I like trying to talk people into something that they don't want. Like, I just don't, like, this is not my world. And that's the world that I found myself in. So I was like, I hate this. So I parked my license, and then actually a Flint cop buddy of mine, who's actually back to training jiu-jitsu now. So Dane Seltzer, good job. He let me put my license with him and kind of do business my own way. And it kind of really opened the door for me to think I could do this. Like, I might be able to do this. And I enjoyed it when I did it my way. And then me and Chris were able to link up and actually create.
Well, how did you meet Chris, first off?
I met Chris through Humanizing the Badge. So I can't remember the lady's name. She's kind of like in the cop counseling type world. And she played like matchmaker with Chris and his now wife, whose dad was a chief of police, a retired chief of police in Arizona.
Okay.
So they met there, and she got introduced to Tristy, the lady that was like my counterpart for Humanizing the Badge, and she brought him in as like a board member.
She brought Chris or the
Chris.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Chris was already doing like faceless social media stuff with a page called Survive the Streets, a page for cops, had like 500,000 people or something like that on it. And so we started like learning from each other about social media, and like I was a very face forward guy. He was like, no one knew what he looked like, but he was running these massive influential cop pages. And so we hit it off, and we've started a bunch of businesses together. We've had businesses fail together. Like, yeah, so the real estate thing was what brought us together and is stuck.
What businesses did you two start together?
Oh, man. We started a company called Sheepdog Nation that had a Facebook group before it got nuked and destroyed by Facebook. Thank you. Thank you, Zuckerberg. We started a private app as a result of that. Apparel, coins, merch, fun stuff.
So all cop related
Yeah,
things.
and we did a lot of good things too. We raised a metric shit ton of money. I mean, I never totaled it up actually, but I know that between everything that I've been a part of, like it's got to be 7 figures of raising money for cop causes. So we've done a lot of good stuff. And we had another business called Copper State Custom. We made wooden replicas of badges. So like 2 feet
Those are sweet.
tall, like whatever. And we did a kick-ass job at it. We had we invested 6 figures of money into like a facility. We had CNC machine. We had all this stuff, and we were generating revenue, but we cranked at that business for like 2 years, and we didn't make a dime. We paid our employees. We had like a few employees full time, and like they got paid, but like we made nothing as owners, and we just got like the 10-7 project, and real estate was really starting to take off, and this was like a grind, so we just let it go.
Should have gone on Shark Tank. I've been binging that lately.
I don't think it was unique enough for Shark Tank. Yeah, I don't know what kind of product I would need to create for cops to go on Shark Tank. Maybe the Mike Loop guy should have gone on Shark Tank.
Or the guy with the little shoulder mounted red and blue light
Angel lights.
Yeah.
Every TikTok cop has that.
Yeah, super
sponsored
tactical.
by Angel Light and Olight flashlights from freaking China.
It's amazing. All right. And when did you realize your cop skills translated well into real estate?
I think I did a couple of stupid transactions early on, hated it. And then, like I said, I parked my license, and then somehow I had probably said on social media, hey, I'm in real estate or something. But then I stopped talking about it and never brought it up. But I got an email from a guy who's now a really good friend of mine who was like, hey, did I like remember correctly? You're in real estate. Can you help us? So I like reached back out, and we're going to sell his fiance's place and then buy them a new place. And so I was like, yeah, I'll help you. He owned an insurance company at the time, or a branch of an insurance company. He had a franchise. And I'm like, all right, I'll show up this daytime, whatever, we'll talk about it. And I remember thinking specifically, like, I am like going to just be myself. And I wore shorts, my shower slides, hoodie probably. And like literally I did not know these people, and I put my feet up on his desk. And I literally said, if what you're looking at right now is not for you, I'm telling you right now, if it comes to negotiations and talking to other agents, they're all idiots, and I can win any deal. Like, I will do good for you. But if you want me to look a different way or have a different attitude, I'm not your guy. And they're like, hired. And I was like, sweet. So like, and then like 2 days before closing, a terrible storm rolls through. I wake up, like, look at my phone, and I'm getting texts from him at like 3 in the morning, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. And so a tree falls into the house, like
The fiance's house or the one
yes,
they're buying?
no, the one they're selling.
Okay.
So they're already under contract for this other house.
Yeah.
Now this tree falls to this house, and so he was a cop too. So we kind of put our like, I showed up to the scene, right? Like, and here we are, like figuring it out, as if like we got handed a shit sandwich and had to figure out who's eating it and how. Like,
As if a bum got ran over and the
yeah,
pizza's cold.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like you got to figure this out. Like doing nothing isn't an option, and giving in is an option. So what's the plan? And we figured it out and got it done. Like it was a crazy situation, but we got the buyer to get at the closing table and sign. Like we got it done. And then I was like, that was pretty cool. Like that felt like, in a different way, doing the same thing, problem solving, you know, which is all cops are, is glorified problem solvers, really. So I was like, okay, this makes sense. I can do this. And if I can help more people who like me for who I am, and I can make money, this is not a bad thing. And that's where like, and then I posted about it, right? Like I shared, this is what's going on. And then that led to somebody else like, oh, can you help me? Oh, can you help me? And then it was like, oh, okay, this is starting to, I can see how this will work. And then I was like, I like this better than like just cold like marketing or whatever else. I really like helping people again.
And at this point, you were doing that social media marketing thing for that company that manages other people. Mm-hmm. And so at what point did you decide, all right, I'm going all in on this real estate thing?
Well, I had a year commitment on that startup. And then I just basically didn't renew. I was like, I'm just going to go keep doing my own thing. So at that time, I was still doing Mike the Cop stuff. I think I felt like it kind of like started leveling off like in 2019. It was like the information super high. It was more crowded than it was in 2015. So, but yeah, I mean, like from then on, it was like, I can make this work to make money. I can do something with this. And that's when like me and Chris comparing notes, we each got like our own coaches. We were really trying to kind of like really dial our own businesses in. And like, once I was like making decent money in real estate, I was like, okay, well, I can't be the only idiot cop that ever wanted to make a side hustle money. I'm like, man, if I could have done this instead of like slaving on overtime before, that would have been awesome. That would have been great. I could have been at more of my kids' functions. I could have done so much more than if I had this kind of leverage point. And so that's when like the idea of the 10-7 project was born. I'm like, well, we could help other cops. And that's when we started doing exactly that. Like saying, hey, it's obviously not going to be for everybody, but if you want to do this, if you want to do this business, we can help you. Like we can teach you how to do this. But obviously, like not everybody wants to do real estate. Some people want to do landscaping businesses or sell insurance or do whatever. Like, cool. Like, that's great. But if you want to do real estate, we can teach you.
And how long did it take to get started and like figure out kind of the framework? Like how long did it take to get the 10-7 project up and going?
The 10-7 project, we had the idea like summer of 2020, maybe early 2020, but we had no way to do it because there was no broker option. Because every state has its own thing, its own laws, its own licensing, and then like inside there you've got different brokers, chains, individuals. That's like, how could we ever possibly do that? We can't give up all of our time to coach for free, which we didn't want to like charge cops to teach them to do it. Our idea was like, how can we help? And then when EXP became an option, which is like a cloud-based brokerage, we were like, oh, well, this is the way. And so that's when we started it in the fall of 2020. And really, like, we had no idea what we were doing. By June of 2022, we had like 120, 125 agents. Then we made the jump to real broker, and then now we're at like 220. So we've continued to grow, and I think that like we're on the cusp of probably a lot more growth.
Why do you think that?
I just think that like our systems are dialed in, our confidence is dialed in, and I see a path forward for the first time. Like there's a sociological thing that happens with how many people a person can manage. Like a person can have like a best friend, like the closest person to them, typically. Then you have like a handful, 2, 3, 3 to 5, maybe really, really close friends. The people that they know all about you. You know all about them. Whatever. They're the people you're calling at 4 a.m. when you got a problem, right? And then you've got like 12 to 20. That's your social circle. Like then you get like up to 75. That's like your acquaintances. That's who's kind of getting the holiday invitations and that kind of stuff. And then you go like beyond that, and you can have like 200 you can have 200 relationships where you can like even keep up with that like on any kind of meaningful level at all. Like that's the max for people. And when we got to 200, we didn't even realize it, but we got stuck. We were stuck at 200. And I think that's exactly why, because we have people closing deals now. I would be like, that name sounds familiar. Like I don't know them.
Yeah.
They might not be as apt to be communicating with us, so I'm not going to be like
not needy like myself.
not local like yourself. That's the difference. Yeah, I think now we got like what we call like our leadership council, so we'll be able to pour into other people. We realize like now we have a system. The system works. The system's not the problem. We are. Like we're actually hamstringing the system now. We need to be able to replicate ourselves. We need to coach the coaches to be coaches, like to do what we did. That's the path to multiplication. I can't grow this to 1,000 people because I don't have the means to have the relationship with 1,000 people. I can't pour into that many people. So that I think we've realized that now.
Realized, huh?
Yeah, realized. Yeah. So yeah, that's so I think we're going to see us getting out of our own way in 2024, and I think that'll open the path to more growth.
And the stated mission for the 10-7 project is what?
A tagline is helping heroes take better vacations. But yeah, help 10,000 cops, veterans, public safety professionals change their lives with this business, like supplement or replace their income. Yeah, because we got people that want to just do three or four deals a year and take a better vacation. Literally, that's what they want to do. They want to take their kids to Disney and not worry about a single dime. Like that's all they care about. They still want to be cops. They don't have any intention of stopping being cops. Like they're just like, man, this is a great side hustle. I made an extra $25,000 this year, like for an extra 12 hours, 15 hours of my life, and now I can book a kick-ass trip to Disney for my kids, and I don't have to stress about it.
And what do you say? I've seen people comment this kind of stuff on, I think it was on some account, but it was people saying like, oh, you think that the cop profession's dead and you're trying to get people out of the profession because you think it's useless. I've seen you reply to a couple people saying stuff like that.
Yeah, even though it's like almost always in that post, like a post like that, where we've been really clear, like, hey, no, the world needs good cops. Like, we can't have a world that's anarchy. That's not what we're asking for. We're just saying, like, if you don't want to be, it's okay. Like, you don't have to feel like stuck. You don't have to do 25 years to justify like having been a cop. And there's like this weird crab mentality in policing, like, oh, you couldn't handle it. Like, okay, whatever. Like that's it. That's the one thing, you know. And I just always laugh because most of the time people have no idea anything. Like they don't know me, they don't know my experience or whatever. So you just kind of like shrug it off, like you're a complete moron.
I know you've got a good kind of bit about the sunk cost fallacy. Could you kind of expand on that?
Yeah, man. Like, if you're watching a shit movie, you're 20 minutes in and this movie is 2 hours long, and you're like, well, I've already gone this far, I might as well keep going. Like, why not go on IMDb and find an hour and 28-minute movie that's got an 8.1 rating and just start that one? Like, if you're going to kill the 2 hours, like, just change. Like, just do something different. And that's like a lot of people are like, well, I've already been a cop for 15 years, so I might as well finish. Like, 10 years is like a long time. Like, you can do an insane amount of stuff in 10 years. And so it's like, why, what's holding you back? You know, like, I have conversations like that all the time where guys just like, I want that pension, you know, I want whatever, but they're miserable. It's like, you don't have to keep doing that. If you don't enjoy it anymore, then do something you enjoy. No, I don't know where that idea comes from. That's like, it's only valuable if you hate it. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's not to say that we shouldn't do hard things. I mean, you do these stupid cold plunges. Like, that's like, hey, that could be a discipline builder. Like, but this is we're talking about your job. We're not talking like, and it's like, oh, it's one thing like, oh, my kids are like, we're dumpster diving to feed them. So like, yeah, I would expect that dad to man up and go work at McDonald's if that's what he had to do. Like, do whatever you got to do to feed your kids. It's not, I'm saying like, we don't do hard things ever if the situation requires. But a lot of these guys are just like, they feel so stuck. And it's like, yeah, maybe it's not even the 10-7 project. Like, you don't have to come do real estate. Like, that's fine. But if you're hating what you're doing, like, doesn't your family deserve to have a happier human being, like a more fulfilled human being, like leading them or influencing them? Like, it's crazy. And that sunk cost fallacy where people like just think I have to make it that 25 years or 30 years. Or I talked to some people lately, like they get their full pension. It's like 35 years. I'm like, no, dude, why? No. And I don't think anybody should do this job for 25 years. I don't, it's like, if you're in the military, like, and I'm not comparing active police work to active combat. But what I'm saying is, like, at least in combat, you're done. Like, when you come off a combat field and fly back here, you're not in combat anymore. But if you're in policing, you're always in policing for that whole time. Like, I don't think humans are designed for that. And if you're going to do a career in the military, you don't do, if you do 25 years in the U.S. Army, you are not deployed on combat missions for 25 years. That's not how it works. Like, you'll then train, you'll then do other things. But we don't do that in policing.
Well, and you automatically end up promoting to a level where you're not doing that.
Right.
There's no one more crusty than a 25-year patrolman.
Yes,
they could be 45, but they look like they're 60.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I honestly, I've thought about this a lot, and I don't know what the solution is, because we have this problem of jurisdictional size. So in a department of 20 dudes, what do you do about that problem? Like,
yeah,
how do you solve that problem in that situation? Because in theory, like, take away all the real world limitations. Hey, you should probably be on patrol for like 1 to 5 years, then transition to training. Maybe from like years 5 to 8, you're helping to train the 1 to 5s, or the ones, I guess, right? The early ones. And then you transition into investigations. Then you transition into leadership. But then another problem you run into is not everybody should be leaders. Not everybody should have stripes because they breathed long enough. Like, that's a bad idea. And not everybody should be sergeants because they can pass an academic test. Like, I've seen a lot of dudes that should be the boss that just aren't good test takers, but they're like the wisest people out there about problem solving and getting the job done and getting it done well and safe, you know, like, so you run into lots of these little pitfalls, but somehow there has to be a way to move people through different cycles that keeps them off of like the sort of the quote unquote front lines, right? Like, and again, not saying that your average day of policing is compared to your average day of combat, but there's a sense of like that hypervigilance. It's not good for the human psyche. It's not good for the human body. There's a lot of problems with that I think needs to be addressed as we think about policing evolving into the 22nd century.
Well, I mean, what's that stat that I don't think it's actually verifiable, but that the average cop has like 800 critical incidents or whatever, trauma-inducing incidents over a career versus the average person has like 3 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And most of those are going to be a patrolman. Like
Right.
a captain isn't getting, like you're not getting into critical incidents when you're a captain.
Right.
Seeing crazy stuff, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you might debrief with the guys that come back from that because you've been there and done that or something like that. But yeah, it's wild when you think about that. Again, it's like the dead body and pizza. Like that's somebody's like worst possible day, getting that news or enduring that, and that was just lunchtime. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so yeah, for sure. I don't think it's super wise. I think it takes a certain kind of person to be able to do it for any prolonged period of time. But then like 25 years, like I couldn't do it, and I couldn't. It wasn't that I couldn't do it. I think like skill level wise or mentally wise, I couldn't do it because I'm not I'm not unaware enough of my, like, I'm like, I recognize I don't want to keep doing this for double the time that I've done it. Like I need to have different looks. I need to see a different part of this job. I need to do something different with this job to change freshen my perspective, you know, and guys just get stuck.
Yeah, for sure. In the first episode, the one that I did with Bunting, we were talking about how you get to a point, and neither of us have been cops a crazy amount of time, but you get to a point where it's like people's most tragic moment is just like an inconvenience to you. Like, oh, there's a shooting. Like, man, I literally just put in the order at Chick-fil-A. Like, this is so annoying. Or I just heated up my food that I brought from home. Like, this is so obnoxious. And it's like, well, it's a little more inconvenient to be dead. So,
right. Yeah. And it's not easy to keep that perspective. And I almost think like you can't. Because again, you can't hang on to that. You can't attach yourself to everybody's worst day.
No.
Like you can try to be in the moment, like empathetic, you know, in the moment to one person to another. Like when you're
like a calming a family member or whatever, but you can't carry that burden.
You're given a death notification or something like that, and it's like I need to be as empathetic as I can be in this moment. I need to try to imagine how I would feel if I was on the receiving end of this, but I can't. Yeah, you can't can't hang on to it.
Yeah,
you know, that'll crack people up.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So now that we're kind of talking about life and death, you're in the process of starting a church downriver, and I think that's the logo of the.
This is the logo of one of our the supporting churches out in New York City.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a church there called King's Church, and the pastor there his name's David Englehart. He's like on the board for Turning Point USA. So if you know like Charlie Kirk and all those guys, like he's.
Yeah, that's the church that you went and visited recently, right?
Yeah. So he's that pastor and another one in Toledo are like the two guys that are like holding me accountable, I guess is a good expression that's pretty normal for people to understand. But essentially, like I'm not just like setting up my own little kingdom. I'm not running a cult. I'm not like just taking people's charitable giving and getting a car with it. You know, like they're like making sure like I'm on the up and up.
I feel like Downriver would be a decent place to start a cult.
It could be. There's a variety of options on that. They probably already exist.
So what is the idea for your church? It's called Redemption, right?
Yeah, Redemption Church.
Another creative name.
Yeah, another real basic. I don't really take too much time to think about branding, that's for sure. Although the logo is cool, I should have had Mario make me a shirt with the Redemption Church logo on it. But yeah, I think the name sort of like is the culmination of that mission, right? Like I think a lot of churches may have different mission statements or whatever, but at the end of the day, I think the church in general has a three-pronged mission. One is worshiping God. Two would be equipping people, like to actually live the Christian life. And then three, like, and in this order almost, like three would be then like inviting people to experience that, like other people who aren't a part of that church or who aren't a part of the Christian faith, inviting people in to experience it. So those would be the three things we'd be all about.
Okay. And your plan right now is for downriver. What's the timeline looking like?
I have some benchmarks. So rather than put a time on it, I've put benchmarks in place. So the whole thing could be a non-starter, to be honest with you. So like I'm doing 3 informational meetings. The first one's going to be Thursday. I don't know when this podcast comes out, but the 8th, so this week. And then we'll do 2 more. I can't remember what those dates are, but it's all happens before the end of March. So I committed to doing 3 info meetings in Q1. And if I don't have 12 committed people, then it's a non-starter.
It's not a lot of people. I feel like you'll get 12.
Yeah, we'll see. You know, like...
well, depending on how many more people you piss off on Facebook.
Yeah, we'll see. All I got to do is start talking about faith, and mostly it's people professing to be Christians that jump all over me. But I have a better time with atheists. So yeah, we'll see. Like normally, I would say like when it comes to business, I'm super confident. Like I can figure it out. This is a little bit of a different game, and I think there's some churches that treat it like a business, but I don't view church as a business. So, yeah, it's a very much like we'll see. I'm not trying to market this, I guess, in the same way that I would market a business. So we'll see. That would be like benchmark number 1. Can I gather a group of people that would even be committed to this? And then from there, I would want to see over 6 months, can that group expand to like 50? And that would be like the next point to where we would start maybe like considering any kind of public service at all. Like, you know, like the typical on Sundays at such and such a time and such a place, like you can come here. So otherwise the work is like, hey, let's all make sure we're really on the same page about what we think, what our approach is, how we're going to do this. And like starting to live a common life together, because that's really like the best apologetic for the Christian faith is when one person can treat somebody else the right way. And then people go like, I would like more people to act like that. Yeah. and if we can do that, then we're on the right track. So yeah, then we get to 50, we'll start some public services. And then it's like kind of what it is from there, you know. We'll see. But the 12 is the big mark.
It's a symbolic number.
It is. I feel like I should probably have 120, because if Jesus needed 12, like I'm going to need probably a lot more than that. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully it does. If it doesn't, I'll sell this house and move somewhere else and do something different.
Putting all your eggs in that basket.
It's like, yeah, there's other opportunities out there if this doesn't work. I feel like this is a good right next step for us, but I'll let God decide that.
And you have a line, I think it's like your vision statement or whatever, but what's your line about having like your family as a outpost or something? Yeah,
that's like my personal mission statement.
Yeah.
Like what I'm all about, which I think every dude really needs to understand. Like what they're about. What are they here for? Like,
So what is that statement?
for me, is that I want to lead my family as a kingdom outpost. So, and I go on from there to basically say, like, for the good of others and the glory of God. So, like, it's not like just for my family. I want to lead my family in a way that we're like an outpost. So the whole idea of an outpost is like you would have like where the king actually is, and you have like the kingdom proper, like the capital, and then they would send out people to have these outposts, and they would have like stash of weaponry and food and supplies, and like that's the process by which that kingdom would expand, is by building outposts. And so like for my family, I want to lead us as an outpost. Like I view like my family, the skills that we're developing, what we're all about is to expand that kingdom, the kingdom of God. So that's everything that I do. So like every part of my business, everything that I'm doing has that in view. So like everything that I do is fueled for that. Is fueled for that mission. And then obviously that's like if I'm doing the right things, it's always going to benefit others. It's not just going to benefit my family. It's always going to be good for other people. And if I'm doing good for other people, that brings glory to God. So like it comes kind of full circle.
So 2 things. If you're going to have weapons at this outpost, we know a couple places you're not going to move. Not going to California or Canada.
I carry permitless now anyway, so like I don't care. I said like a pocket constitution. Where's your permit?
I'm traveling.
Here it is. Yeah, I know. I'm like actually closer to sovereign citizens, I think, than I am to normalcy.
And then talking about benefiting your family, I have noticed just in my observations, like your daughter is heavily intertwined in the 10-7 project stuff. You've got your son doing the producing and getting his nipples electrocuted in videos. So how have you kind of woven them into all the different things you've done?
I just included them in everything. Like they couldn't come with me to work. So if I was home, if I could take a kid with me to run an errand, if I could take a kid with me to go meet somebody else or on a trip or wherever, I just like included them and exposed them to what I was doing. So I think like kind of like by osmosis or exposure, you know, like they just like saw me, and I think some of that kind of like bled off by example. And we always just told our kids like, don't go to college unless you need to go to college. Like learn skills, like get a skill, develop it, and then you can monetize that later when you have the skill. By all means, yeah, get a job if you need to, you know, whatever else. Like we didn't baby our kids. They had to pay for their cell phones. They had to pay for their car payments or insurance. Like I didn't just hand them everything, whatever. My older kids will definitely point out that I help my younger kids more than I did the older ones. But I softened up in my older age, I guess.
How many kids do you have?
4.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, they did that, and they just, like, they tapped into their skills. And, you know, when they worked for me, even, like, some of Elijah's friends, you know, it must be nice to have a dad that, like, can just give you money or whatever. He's like, bitch, I work, man. Like, and I didn't pay my kids. I never paid my kids really like by the hour. Always on salary. Always by the job. I'm going to pay you X amount to do this task. Do you want to do it for that or not? Not by the hour. We're not going to be watching SpongeBob while we're packaging stuff, and all of a sudden what could be done in 10 minutes takes you 2 hours.
Yeah.
No. We're going to learn that the skill translates to money, right? So I guess I just instilled that in them, gave them opportunities to be like, yeah, you can go work wherever you want, or you can do this for me, and this is what I'll pay you to do this, and create the win-win situations and just expose them to, even if they don't want to be entrepreneurs, like even if they don't want to own their own business, at least they understand money, business, wealth responsibility from a different angle than a lot of people who just like, all right, I'm gonna go get my job at Wendy's now and whatever.
All right, and then kind of going along with that, you are now doing, it sounds like, more mortgage lending than the real estate stuff. So what was the kind of pivot there?
It was a pretty natural thing. Like my real estate business is kind of like on autopilot at this point. Like I'm at a level that I'm pretty happy with. That gives me steady income while affording me the opportunities to build things like the 10-7 project. And to build things, you got to be willing to invest. You don't make money on the front end. You got to build. So that supplies me while I'm able to build into something else and continue to reinvest there. And at the mortgage side, like two-pronged. One is I got really sick of dealing with crappy lenders as a real estate agent. And I was like, I could do better. Two is it seemed like a natural progression financially, like business-wise. I have 200 agents here. They already trust me. I've earned that. Like, why not get my loan originator license and let them use me for that? I can continue to coach them for free in their real estate business and still invest in them, benefit them if they're willing to give me their business if I've earned it. It seems like a really natural thing. And yeah, so far so good. And now I'm like, man, the more relationships it's no different than like kind of like what we teach in the project for how to get real estate clients. Now it's like, now I need to do the connecting and investing with realtors, and then I would get business on the resulting end of the mortgage space. And what I like about mortgages is it's like laptop. I don't have to go show a house. Yeah. I don't have to like go get listing photos. I don't have to like be as physically present, and it's much more manageable from that perspective. Like I can be anywhere. If I want to, if next week I decide I just want to go sit on a beach, I can do that if that's what I want to do. So I would still have to work, but I can work where I want. Like I can just shift that up a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, I do want to be respectful of your time since we've hit the 2.5 hour mark.
Dang.
So what, besides the church, what do you have upcoming here in 2024 that you're excited about? And then just kind of some closing thoughts.
Man, I'm super excited for 2024. I've been trying to think of ways to continue to take the skills, the things that I'm passionate about, and learn to blend those two. You know, like what I love about the 10-7 project is that I'm helping to coach people. I'm helping people. I don't give a crap about real estate. Really.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't like, I didn't cry because a tree hit that guy's house. I wanted to help. I had a problem to solve, and that resulted in helping somebody. That I like, right? So real estate, I don't care about. Loans, don't care. Like, but if I'm able to leverage that for time to help somebody and it's good for them, like it's a win-win for everybody, good time for dollars, I'm happy. That can fuel something else. And I feel like where I've been lacking is, like I noticed like the greatest things that fire me up about the 10-7 project are being able to coach people, to teach people, and to see them win. I love that. So like, how can I take other things that I'm passionate about? I think I'm doing that like with the church plant. Like I'm really passionate about Christianity. And shoot, we could do a whole other episode on the philosophical and theological underpinnings of that. So I'm really passionate about that, and I'm doing something about it. So I'm excited for that. I really think, and this is like related to that, I think we have like a massive crisis of masculinity.
Yeah, we didn't even get into that.
In our culture. So I'm like, I'm really, I used to think like, well, I want to help cops build better futures beyond the badge. Like, could I, and I could still do this, right? Like I could still like, because I thought to myself, well, not every cop's going to want to do real estate. But when you think about it, real estate is a service business. everything. You could take the Tactical Agent Academy and just turn it into a lawn mowing service. It doesn't matter. It's the same exact thing, the same process. Nothing changes. You need to know your why. You need to lay it out. You need to have a realistic expectation of how to reverse engineer it. And then you need to go connect with people, invest in them, and then ask for business. Like, it's super, any service-based business I could help a cop do. I'm convinced I could help anybody do, because it's no different than what I did in real estate. Now, if you want to sell trinkets online, that gets a little bit more sales and marketing, which is another skill that I have, but I'm not as interested in that. But I want to do that. But then, I've just been like, man, I feel like so much of the downfall of Western culture has come from a reduction of masculinity, healthy masculinity. So, I've been putting out like these feelers with that. Mario's got Alpha Standard. There's other things happening where I'm just having conversations with these dudes, and I'm like, maybe I'm going to do something in the manosphere. From a Christian perspective, I can't separate myself, I don't think, philosophically from those underpinnings, but yeah, something's gonna break in 2024 for me with that. I just don't know exactly what that looks like yet. But
do you have like a quick, I don't know, kind of couple bullet points or whatever, a quick blurb about what you think the fundamental like cornerstones or whatever of masculinity are, in your opinion?
Yeah. Dudes need a mission. I think that's what we're wired for. We connect to God and other people through activity. So we have to do something. There's we could go, man, we can get another drink, just keep on going. Listen, I like this idea of heaven being a bunch of fat babies playing harps and singing boring songs for eternity. I don't know where, I do know where it came from historically. It just didn't come from the Bible. It's not even in there. It's not even remotely in there. What is working and commerce and all sorts of things, art being made, buildings being built, cities being built. That's what we're made for. We're made to create. We weren't made to create with as much stress and problems, but we were made to create. So men need a mission. We gotta have a clarity on that. And I think the right kind of mission will always be for every man, for the good of others and the glory of God. I think that's the ultimate way to do, the ultimate expression of that. But getting clear on a mission. Guys that have no clarity of mission, that are just they're hamster wheeling their life, I think that's where frustration sets in. And in the absence of something productive, we hang on to something from the past. We get stuck now, and we don't have anything to fill it. So it's booze, it's women, it's gambling. Sometimes it's even healthy stuff, working out or sports or something like that. But we become obsessed with things that are pseudo-productive. Oh, you're really good at basketball at the YMCA. Oh, good for fucking you. So what?
Yeah.
Your daughter hates you. But you're really good at basketball. Congratulations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We men will always need to replace something. And the worst cases scenarios of that is I'm really good at Call of Duty. Oh, congrats. You can't beat me at Madden 24. Oh, good. Great.
I can unplug it.
Exactly. It's they want to excel. They want to learn. They want to achieve, even if that's in their mom's basement on a gaming console. They're filling that somehow, that need to have a purpose, right? So that's thing number one, a clarity of mission. Thing number two is discipline, right? So if you're any mission that you set out to do is going to require certain things to be held in check in order to accomplish it. So building in discipline. Ideally, a man grows and matures to a point to where he has self-discipline, right? No one has to tell him what he needs to protect or do in these key areas of his life to achieve his mission, but he can maintain a level of self-discipline. I think that's another big bullet point.
Those 2 points too kind of go along with that quote that you said in our mastermind thing, where you said it was about like discipline, having a fail safe or whatever of somebody else depending on you. What's that quote?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the quote was, but that's like another piece is accountability. So like if you have discipline can kind of wax and wane. Like sometimes you don't have the discipline. You know, sometimes you're motivated, sometimes you're disciplined, and they kind of play off of each other. But to be the most disciplined we can be, I think we need accountability. So I think the optimal man has people he's accountable to in both directions. People look to him, and he's accountable in the sense of people depend on him, and he holds himself accountable to somebody else. He knows other people depend on him, so he is accountable to them. So I think it's like a two-way street.
I think it was make a fail safe for discipline through accountability. I think that's what it was.
For sure. So like on the mornings I don't want to get up and go to, like, I'm just struggling to do jujitsu at night because of my schedule. Like typically I'd barely be making it at 7 if I got there on time. And then all the layers of excuses can start. Well, I'm not even going to get there till 7:20. I'm not going to get there till 7:30. Then, you know, I haven't eaten. And then by the time I finish class, then I'm like, I'm going to be all jacked up because the excuses start. And so like, no, but I need the discipline of regular training. So how do I maintain that discipline? Well, accountability. So then I say, I'm going to do a morning class at 7 a.m. where I have no excuses. And I just backed up to the earliest time. Like if the class had to be at 5 a.m., it'd be at 5 a.m. But like 7 worked. Now I have to show up. I'm the guy with the key. This guy left his family to come train. Now, and it's on me. I have to be there. So the discipline now has that fail safe, because on the days that I'm not feeling the discipline or could get away with it, then the accountability is there, and that allows me to keep the discipline. And if I keep the discipline, I stay on mission. So I think those are like the 3 big bullet points.
You don't subscribe to the wild at heart thing about needing a woman to save. And
man, don't get me started on John Eldridge. So the problem with John Eldridge is like he makes that book like as if it's Christianity, and there's a mess of problems with that. There's a mess of problems, like theologically, practically speaking. Like I don't disagree that guys want to win the hearts of women. Like I think that's like certainly a piece of our mission, like, because our mission is always going to be for others, and we're made to procreate. We're made to have families. Like that's norm, right? Like, so yeah, like I buy that a little bit, but yeah, there's other problems with that book, but
all right, well,
in my opinion.
All right, well, I won't get you started on that.
I'm sure Eldridge is a nice guy.
I'm sure he won't listen to this. So, all right, well, that was kind of a closing thought, but let's just give a quick closing blurb by the artist formerly known as Mike the Cop. And where can people find you, even though we've said it like 20 times already?
Until Meta lets me change my name, which I have tried monthly for 13 months now, to change my name away from Mike the Cop, which maybe I'd go with like Mike was a cop. Maybe that would be okay. I don't know. But until then, Mike the Cop usually finds me. Mike Edwards. So I think my username is 107Mike right now on Facebook. So you can find me there. That's really where I'm most active, is there on Instagram.
If you want to get in Christian debates, they're plentiful on that page.
Just wait till I drop any statement about faith at all. And then you'll quickly realize, if you are a Christian, that most people who claim to be are not.
But all right, maybe some closing wisdom for cops out there.
That it's pretty simple. Don't, like, I've been preaching this lately, like your job is not your identity. Like, you can be proud of your job. You can be really into it, like we're talking about training a lot, right? On the mats, jiu-jitsu, like, and usually you can't train on the job. Like, they're not going to let you go to jiu-jitsu class every day while you're working. So you're going to have to do that on your own time. Like, it requires some extra discipline. It is a unique job. There's nothing else like it in the world. It doesn't make you any better or worse than anybody. It just makes you different, but it's not your identity. Like, you need to have a life, and you are who you are, whether you are a cop or anything else. It doesn't matter, and which is what can allow you to transition away from that if that's what you want, because you're not losing yourself. You're just being yourself in a different job or different capacity. But yeah, if you get too wrapped up in policing being your identity, yeah, then I think you can lose that sense of mission.
Especially these days when the job is under fire from all directions. It's probably
then you start to take it personal.
It. Yeah.
If policing is your identity and the media is constantly portraying you in a bad light, then you feel like you are being painted in a bad light as a person. And then that weighs on you, and it's totally unnecessary.
Yeah. Well, all right. Appreciate you coming on. That 2 hours and 45 minutes flew by.
It did.
So thanks again.